Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the July 7th Planning Board meeting. We're missing Elizabeth Latone, but otherwise we have a full board. So first, can I get one of my fellow members to approve the minutes from the June 2nd, 2026 meeting?
I'll approve the meeting.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, this so moved. Mr. City Attorney?
Hi, good morning. Today's meeting of the Planning Board is being conducted in a hybrid format with a quorum physically present in the Commission chambers at Miami Beach City Hall and applicants, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. Those wishing to participate via Zoom may dial the toll-free number, which is 877-853-5257, and enter the webinar ID, which is 861-4342-6327#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 861-4342-6327. Individuals wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if using Zoom, or dial *9 if participating by phone. Before I swear in those who are testifying, I'm going to read into the record the city's notice regarding lobbyist registration. If you are appearing on behalf of a business, a corporation, or another person, including as an architect, attorney, or representative of an applicant or an objector, you need to register as a lobbyist with the city clerk's office before speaking to the board. You do not have to register as a lobbyist if you are speaking only on behalf of yourself, you are testifying as an expert witness, providing only scientific, technical, or other specialized information, or you are appearing as a representative of a neighborhood association without compensation to express support for or opposition to an item. Expert witnesses and representatives of neighborhood associations shall, prior to appearing, disclose in writing to the city clerk their name, address, and the principal on whose behalf they are communicating. These rules apply whether you are appearing in favor of or against an item, or encouraging or arguing against its passage, defeat, modification, or continuance. I will now swear in everyone who is physically present in the Commission chambers and intends to testify. Virtual speakers will be sworn in one by one before addressing the board. So if you will be testifying today, please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will be giving is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with requests for continuances. The first is Planning Board File PB 250776, Liquor Store Prohibition on Lincoln Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's a series of ordinances on the agenda this morning requesting a continuance to the March 2027 meeting. This is in response to Senate Bill 180. So we have been preempted from adopting certain regulations. So with the first application, we are requesting a continuance to the March 2027 meeting.
Okay, anything we need to do?
You do need to vote on that.
Okay. Can someone move it to the March 20,
Motion to move to
the March meeting?
March meeting.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so moved. Next one is Planning Board File 250777, increased distance separation for tobacco and vape stores. Same thing, I assume?
Same thing.
Okay, motion?
Motion to move.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so moved. And these are all to March?
Those two are to March.
Okay, the next one is Planning Board File PB 260827, North Beach Residential Incentives LDR Amendment, and a companion Planning Board File 260828, North Beach Residential Incentives Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The sponsor of this item, Commissioner Mateo Salinas, is recommending the item be continued to the September 8th meeting, and staff has no objection to that.
Motion
Okay.
to move to September.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so moved. And the last one is Planning Board File 260826, Alton Beach Bayfront Overlay Temporary Sales Center.
The sponsor of this item as well is requesting a continuance, so we would recommend the September 8th meeting for the continuance, and we have no objection to that.
Okay,
Motion to move.
I'll second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, all moved. All right. Progress reports, file number PB 260846, PB 0716-042, file number 1819, whatever all this is, 6946 Rue Vendôme, 1021 Biarritz Drive, and 997 Biarritz Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant, Alpha School LLC, is appearing before the board to affirm their understanding of the conditions of approval in the previously issued modified conditional use permit. The existing CUP was issued to Le Petit Papillon Montessori School for a 250-student educational facility. The school has been acquired by a new owner who is appearing before the board to affirm their understanding of the CUP conditions. Staff is recommending the board hear from the new owner and conclude the item.
Sir?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here representing Alpha School with the new owner of the Le Papillon Montessori School on Biarritz. I'm here appearing as a condition of the CUP to inform you that we are the new owner and that we will abide by all 18 conditions of the modified conditional use permit.
Okay. Anyone here in chambers to speak on this? Anyone on Zoom? Okay. Any questions? Okay, so I guess we can move to dismiss it.
Move to dismiss.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. Do you have any comments about this one?
No, we're
Okay.
actually very excited and happy to support this new school
Great,
coming to
okay.
North Beach. Yeah.
So all in favor of, I guess it's dismissing it from future reports, right?
Yes,
Okay.
concluding the item.
Keith? Keith moved it, second?
Yeah.
Can I get a second?
I second
Okay.
it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, good
Have a
luck.
good day.
Okay, revocation modification hearings, planning board file 210442, 743 Washington Avenue.
Mr. Chair, we did receive a request for continuance from the applicant's representative, their attorney, James Rao. He advised us that he has a medical appointment this morning. He should be here between 10 and 11 a.m. So if we could skip this one.
Oh, okay, I thought you said to continue it, okay.
And, well, he has requested continuance, but
Let him make it?
yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll skip by that one. We'll go to the second revocation hearing, planning board file 210448, 235 23rd Street.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This particular establishment, Baccarat, is a nightclub located in the Collins Park neighborhood. The initial CUP goes back to 2006, so it has quite the history. There was a series of progress reports in 2025 for this property due to violations. On May 1st, 2026, the planning department sent a cure letter to the property owner and tenant of the space. That cure letter was in response to several violations, which are outlined on page 2 and 3 of your staff report. Primarily, those violations centered around their valet operations. So the approved CUP has a couple conditions specific to their valet operations, which was part of their operational plan when the board approved the CUP. At some point, their valet company did not renew their BTR. So the valet company was operating without a valid business tax receipt. That led to violations being issued of the city code, operating without a business tax receipt, as well as violations to the CUP, since the CUP contains specific conditions about the valet. Since May 6th, the property has received 2 violations, multiple days, totaling 44 violations. We also note that we have been working with the applicant and the valet company. I'm happy to report that after, a good amount of time, unfortunately, the valet did resolve their issues. And they now currently have a BTR, and their violations are pending review by the special magistrate in August. Given the issues with this particular property, while staff, is very happy that that valet issue has been resolved, we do think it's a good idea to keep this on the agenda and bring them back in September so we can determine if, there's any additional violations or if they are in compliance with all their conditions of the CUP.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Mickey Morera here on behalf of Baccarat Nightclub. My address is 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, with the law firm Burkhardt, Riddell, Fernandez, Larkin, and Tapinas. So again, we were here last month and we heard a lot from the board, which I have conveyed to my client. The thing that Debbie spoke of, and I just want to, mention that a little bit more again. These violations, every time they would open, and I've been in touch with code and I understand what happened, they would issue 2 violations. And we appealed them every time because frankly, we felt that this has nothing to do with anything that they did or could control. The valet company that they have used and have a contract with, and that services many restaurants, I think it's like 60 or so different restaurants, businesses in the city, had somehow their license lapsed. We had no way of knowing that was happening or doing it. So they were just cited for that third-party issue. We appealed them because again, had we just decided to close until the valet company resolved that issue, that paperwork essentially issue, they would have gone out of business because a business like that, 5, 6 weeks, they lose all their employees. It doesn't operate with the widest margins. So, and again, it was not something that they could even fix. So we were in constant touch with the valet company. We offered to help. Their attorney did get involved and do everything as quickly as they could. Losing the contract with the valet company and seeking a new valet company would have taken longer than what was allowed to happen here. And we've been in touch with code and the city attorney's office. They've been great to deal with. They understand, that it really wasn't anything that we could control or even fix. So we're working, and they were the ones that continued our appeals to August to allow us an opportunity to resolve that, potentially with a settlement or something reasonable, just because we did everything that we could to solve it. And the other thing that was brought up, and I discussed last time the 2 violations that did bring us here in the beginning. One was related to an event that they allowed, and obviously when they allow a third party to use the venue, they're going to be more careful, and they've been more careful since. But in November, there was a charity event for a breast cancer charity that they allowed the property to be used, and in that event, the outdoor patio was used by the charity. It was not supposed to be used. They paid the fine, and that was, but again, it was a result of them allowing it to be used for charity, and that's unquestioned. The other thing that brought them here was, out of the hundreds of times that they have to notify the police, within 96 hours about any celebrity, any act that's going to be present in the venue, one time they were late. They were late, they paid the violation, but again, that happens multiple times a week, and they're pretty judicious about getting that right. Another thing that wasn't in the staff report that was mentioned by several board members, there was an individual social media personality who had a marketing partnership with the venue. There was a lot of concerns raised, not just on this day, as I see Mr. Mark shaking his head because you definitely had some concerns. I conveyed that to them, and while it was a profitable partnership for them, they immediately broke that partnership. They felt that the concerns were warranted. I explained to them, there were some things that, may have been associated with that individual and his following that occurred, and they just felt that, it was good enough reason to break that relationship, and that's since basically a couple days after that hearing, that is non-existent, and that's obviously, there was a little bit of social media on that because that individual was upset that he was taken away from the club, but nevertheless, he's no longer involved, and I think things have straightened out. Again, the number of violations, I think, is really a misnomer here because it was one thing that a license by a third-party vendor was lapsed. They move quickly, and these licenses take weeks and weeks and weeks to solve because you have to come up with all new paperwork, all new signatures, stuff from the state, stuff from the county, but it got done, and everything's in order now. So I agree with Debbie. I think that there has been enough concern. They have taken action, so I hope you all see that. But we're happy to come back in September or whenever you feel appropriate to just make sure that things continue on the right path.
Debbie, did you say a BTR was issued? Because my understanding is it's still under review.
We were advised by the applicant late last week it was approved.
And code is here. They
Yeah, Edgar
advised me.
Estrada, the Assistant Director of Code Compliance, is here.
So BTR has in fact been issued?
That's correct, sir. The BTR for the valet company has been issued, and they are authorized to now operate.
Okay. Just wanted clarification on that. Okay.
Were they operating or were they not there for the last 2 months?
They were not there. The valet company was not there because their BTR was not issued.
So
at
you
that
were operating with knowledge of violating the CUP.
Right, let me clarify. The
Let
valet
me have,
company.
wait, before you, I have a question. When you say BTR is issued, does it have to be issued per location or is it a blanket BTR?
It's one BTR, and then they have to list on their business tax receipt all the locations that they
And
service.
so has a BTR been issued for this location?
Yes, the one blanket BTR has been issued so they can
For this
operate.
location, though?
Yes.
Okay.
But this company had a BTR for other locations, is that what you're saying?
So it's one BTR,
One.
and in that one BTR, they have to list out all the locations that they're approved to work for.
So were they in violation, and he mentioned 60 places, were there violations in other places? Or did they honor their cup and decide not to operate with an invalid valet? Or get another valet?
I'm not aware of the other locations if they were operating out of there.
Do you?
Yeah, look, again, I only speaking to the valet company. I don't represent the other venues, and, I just used a number, but it's something like
Well,
that.
but you mentioned.
Yeah, the valet operator, when I spoke to her several weeks ago, told me that the only one that got, even though her license was impacted, the only one that got violations was this venue. No other, and no
So
one
they
else
were
closed.
operating illegally in other locations?
I don't know that they even knew there was an issue because they didn't receive violations.
We were here last month.
No.
You didn't cure it
No.
between May and June.
I
We're
was
now
saying
in
the other
July.
venues. The other venues didn't even get violations, so they didn't know they were operating. Our operation, we appealed every one of them because we don't feel that it was just. Frankly, we didn't do anything, and they did not have valet. The reason it's an issue is because the CUP back in '06, when it was originally issued, when valet was a major way that people got to nightclubs, required, so there wouldn't be parking issues, that valet be required. Frankly, and it's something I'd like to explore, and I know today's not the day, but my client would actually like to modify that CUP at the appropriate time, whenever this concludes, to remove that requirement, and I'll tell you why. They tell me they honor it, they pay a valet company, they pay it at a premium because it's required, right? But even when it's operational, valet 4 to 6 cars a night. The business has changed. In '06, everyone valeted to these clubs. Now everybody Ubers. That's the reality, and I think we all recognize that. So they told me, we don't need a valet, really. It's something that is constantly creating paperwork problems for us. All this time that the valet wasn't operating, the valet was not operating. They were the one that the license was at issue. They operated fine without a valet. They didn't need to valet cars. So this sort of problem is kind of like on paper, but in reality, it didn't change anything because they don't need to valet. They would ultimately like to remove that condition because I think it was very important in '06 to have. But in 2026, it's a very different business. But again, the valet company, Mr. Marks, was not operating in the location. They were not. They were not during that time. Now they are.
Does code know if they were operating illegally in other locations?
I'm not aware.
Can you find out?
Well, how would
I
they
mean,
know?
you- how did you approve
Hold
their
on, how would they,
BTR?
if
Yeah.
they didn't have a BTR, how would they not be?
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
is
why
there-
would
is
you
there
give
any
them a
way you-
BTR if they've been operating for months illegally? Without at least knowing that?
Sure.
I think what happens is that, I mean, just from seeing
I'm
this happen
very
with some of
confused.
our valet operators, there are times where they're operating, they might have had a BTR, it lapses for whatever reason,
Yeah.
someone doesn't get a notice, they get the notice that they're in violation, they immediately apply. And the issuance of the BTR is some type of stamp that, okay, it's, procedural, you got it, now you're good to operate. So, I mean.
When did
I
they
think
apply?
it's somewhat normal that it happens.
So that information, the information that I do know is that they were issued, they reissued their BTR on June 30th. So
But
that,
you don't know when they reapplied?
no, I wouldn't have that information. That information goes through our finance department, which handles all business tax receipt applications.
Okay, and you're certain that this location has been approved for it?
Absolutely, yes.
What about the pyrotechnics violation?
So that was
What
something
about all
that.
the police violations?
Hold on, let me ask just about this
Do you,
one.
by the way, do you have your records that verify
We
what you're
have
saying? That they were issued a BTR on June 30th?
Yes.
Where are you getting that from?
From our system, our Energov system.
You looked at this before you
Yes.
before you came
Yes.
today? Okay, all right, because my understanding is it was still pending.
For the valet, no. The valet, it
And for
clearly
this
says on the
location.
system, issued June 30th, active
Okay,
status.
All right.
I have a
Do
question.
you swear?
Are there,
You're under oath. I just wanted to make sure you're accurately, not assuming that you actually know that for a fact.
how often is code out there on scene, and are they getting called, or is it just random checks like they do with other nightclubs?
Well, Routinely, it is just random checks, random proactive checks that we do at different clubs. But since we knew that this location was in violation, we wanted to make sure that they were either in compliance or not. So we would do regular checks at this particular location.
And I think to attempt to answer Mr. Marks' question on the timing, the minute we found out, and frankly, the valet company found out about this issue from me. I found out who they were. I contacted them and I said, guys, we're having an issue with this venue because of your license. They're like, what issue? I mean, they didn't even know. So then we got them. I don't represent the valet company. My client does not control the valet company. They were telling us, we don't know what happened. We're going to get on it right away. We had weekly calls. Ultimately, they did, we believe they started the process pretty much immediately. They were caught by surprise. And again, none of the other venues, and I don't understand why, and I'm not here to explain it because I don't get it, but we got issued violations just by opening, you don't have valet every time. None of the other venues, according to the valet company, so I'm not testifying, I'm just telling what someone else told me that should know, we're the only one that got violations for this. None of the other ones were told to close. None of the other ones even knew about this, that the valet company serves. So we were the ones pushing them to please solve this because it's affecting us. We appealed it because, again, I think us not appealing it and just closing down would have just meant the business closes because the valet company didn't file paperwork that we didn't control. And I just think that's patently unfair. So we did everything we could to help them. We offered to help. They ultimately did resolve it in less than 2 months. It does take time. For those that are involved, have ever been through licensing process, it does take sometimes months to get a license. When you let it lapse, it's not just make a payment. You got to show new paperwork, and it takes time. But they did it. We were constantly, offering support and urging them on. But I think we're in a much better place now, and that's why, I think, we've done everything that we could do. And again,
All right, is there anyone in chambers to speak on this? No? Yes? Are you? Come on up.
Ray Breslin, President of Collins Park Neighborhood Association. And I just want to go on record as saying, we're very concerned about 23rd Street. It is arguably the busiest street in our neighborhood. You can't get to Collins Avenue until you get to 41st Street. But yet there's no activity at all between Valero gas station and Walgreens on either side of the street. Every business is closed or not open, and the city owns 2 of those properties. They haven't done anything with the property at the Anamar. They've been working for 5 years with Miami New Drama in the garage, but yet nothing has happened. If you walk down that street, it's filthy. In front of the property that we're talking about, there's on the windows, it says not a window, but yet they're peeling. The building is filthy. I mean, to me, this is very important for our neighborhood to maintain a cleanliness. So all of this, as far as I'm concerned, is part of a CU that you issue to the building. One of the things they originally told us is that they were going to have they have that outside area that's all blocked off and nice sofas and everything else. That was going to be open during the day or early evening and offer something to the neighborhood. That's never happened. They want to put a restaurant on the corner, and I know that that's coming through at some point in time. I don't know what kind of benefit the neighborhood is actually going to get out of that. So I think you have to look at all of that when you're doing this, and I appreciate your, thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Anybody else in chambers? Anybody on Zoom? Okay. You can come back up, and I guess, any other questions or?
Well, the question is, it was requested of staff
Mr.
to have
Chair?
police discuss.
So sorry to
the
interrupt.
issues.
I missed someone. We do have one person on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Marks. We have Brewster Knott.
Brewster, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You there?
Hello?
Deb? Is he still showing his?
Yes,
Oh, there.
I do. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
First?
All right. Sorry, again, my name is Brewster Knott. I represent the Anamar at Collins Park with the Miami City Ballet School as dormitory dwelling and workforce housing for the city of Miami Beach. Aside from all of the discussion about valet, I brought this up last month on this call. Our concerns and my concerns as a property manager for the developer side and everyone involved is the safety of residents, safety of students, and the activity that's going on at that nightclub. It's been said multiple times that that courtyard is not to be used. That courtyard is used each night that that club is open. Whether it's rented out privately or not, the courtyard is in heavy use. The noise activity is insane. And the activity that occurs between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. when that club shuts down, there are people all over the streets. They're crossing the sidewalks. They're partying in the middle of the streets. They're on my property when they're not supposed to be. And it's turning into an entire nightmare. My residents are complaining. The students are complaining. They cannot sleep. And I'm going to have people move out of this building early than what they would normally do because of it. So that's my concerns with the noise and what's going on. And I don't think anybody's really bringing that up, but the cops have been called multiple times. It should be in the reports.
Where's the report?
So we had requested that the police department attend today's meeting. We have not. We reached out to them again today. We have not heard back from them for a while. So I don't know if we are going to have any updated information, but the previous discussion included the calls for service.
Numerous calls.
Correct.
Noise.
But no, do we
Fights.
have noise violations?
Fire.
No, the noise violations would be a code compliance violation. The calls for service are basically, calls reporting any type of
Quality
criminal
of life,
activity.
neighborhood issues.
And, right, it could be, that they assign an address, but it's happening outside the nightclub and it appeared that there were several of the police citations that were during the hours of operation of the nightclub.
So, but what Mr. Knott has mentioned, it seems that there's noise violation happening where the noise seems to be excessive between 2 and 5. Do we have any record?
I don't have any recent noise violations or noise warnings. I don't believe code has cited or given a warning for any noise violations within the past several months.
And if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I can speak to that as well. So again, I'm happy to reach out to Mr. Knott. I can try and find his contact information and work with him. But as you know, first of all, code is there every night that they're open. That's evidenced by the violations. We have no noise violations. It's not, oftentimes noise violations, as we've seen with other locations, are not that hard to get if you're in violation. The city's very active and they have a very good code enforcement department. If there are complaints, they get there pretty quickly and they issue these violations.
Can I
There are none.
ask Code Director, sir, are you knowledgeable in the last 2 months of code being, you've been checking on valet, that you could check on them at midnight. What activity has code had proactively to look at that place between 2 and 5 a.m.? Any? Proactive.
So yes, proactively, absolutely, we are out there. We're not out there the entire time, so there.
No, but between 2 and 5, random,
Between 2 and 5, we have randomly gone out proactively.
in the last several months,
Correct, since May.
since May.
Since May, and we have received noise complaints. When we have received the noise complaints, it depends if it's on a Wednesday. We don't have officers working until 5 a.m. So we would get the complaints after the fact. And that's not something that we're able to issue a notice for, because our officers need to observe it firsthand. Now, when it's been on any other days that our officers are working, if we are very quick to issue a notice for excessive noise. However, in the last 2 months, we have not issued a notice of violation, so we have not physically observed firsthand any noise violations.
Do you know how many calls for noise you've had in the last 2 months?
I don't have that exact number on me now, but
Guesstimate?
a guesstimate, a fair guesstimate, I would say between five maybe, 5 to 7 perhaps in the last 2 months. 3 months.
As far as the court usage, can you both clarify whether or not that's what Mr. Knott said? Is it being used illegally? Is that correct?
From my perspective, again, as Edgar said, they're there pretty regularly. There's one night a week that because of the shift, they can't be there at certain hours, but they're pretty much there a lot. You can see proactive investigation on the EnerGov. They're there pretty regularly. If that courtyard's being used illegally, a violation would be issued. It's been issued before for that charity event. I'm happy to speak to Mr. Knott. Maybe there's some, staging that goes on. They're not operating as part of the venue. I'm not saying that people don't walk through it because they could use it for bringing stuff. Again, but to say that they're using it as part of the nightclub, it's just, that's not my understanding and speaking to my client, and the evidence from the violation shows that's just not happening. But again, if there's something that's impacting him and his residents, where I'd love to talk to him and understand, but I'm not, and I want to point something else out, as has been said, and again, I know Ray Breslin for years, and I'm happy to speak to him and maybe, address some of his concerns about the neighborhood. But as mentioned, a lot of these properties are vacant. It's, we just happen to be one of the only open places in that area. So if something happens a block away, the address you put, because I've seen this many times, is the address of the closest venue that has a license, but it doesn't mean it happened there. It is an area with, when you don't have activity, you're more likely to have, vagrancies and other issues. Am I saying nothing has ever happened as a result of people in the club? Of course not. It could be. People are out partying. There's an argument. It happens at every venue, restaurants, nightclubs. But I think to say that it's all related to this venue is not fair, because it's an area that's just underlit and underactive.
So I think there's a couple things, just so we move things along here. So I think we've addressed the valet issue. I think that's resolved. And so based on what they're here for today, that's a section that we could probably move. But we do have a lot of issues, and I would call on to like Ray and Mr. Knott. We got to make sure that you guys call in and I know it's not on you guys to do this, but I think we are all wanting the neighborhood to be representative of the city, especially when you have an institution like the city ballet school across the street. I think that bring them back in September is valid, but between now and then, or maybe it's October to give it a little more time, but I think it's valid that there are some issues and that we got to make sure that the residents call in some complaints if there's violations of noise, so that we have something to base ourselves on to make a decision in the next hearing.
Make the motion.
So I would make
I have more questions.
Yep.
So I guess what is the, number one, I'm looking at the CUP. Is this the one that was originally issued for Mokai
At 2 a.m.
and then transferred over to Baccarat?
Correct.
Okay. I don't see anywhere in there that they can't use the courtyard. There can't be entertainment out there. Is that?
They did come back for a modification, I believe, there was a previous revocation modification hearing where the
Says no
planning board
outdoor.
did remove that courtyard, that outdoor area from the venue.
The courtyard is outdoors, is it not?
Correct.
It says no outdoors.
Correct.
Item right there, on item 6.
Correct.
So.
So if they wanted to use that.
No, I'm
You
sorry.
can't have
but it
people outdoors.
It says no outdoor entertainment shall be permitted. You
Yeah.
can pour people out there and have them, doing whatever, drinking, and you can maybe even have ambient music out there. I don't know, but you can't have entertainment. And so,
The use of it, even as just an outdoor cafe, was removed
Yeah.
as part of their CUP in
well, so but I guess
2021, I believe.
why-
So currently, if they are using it, even if it's just for, a quiet, passive service of food or drink, that would not be,
I don't know if necessarily they're doing that, but if they have people hanging out there as maybe even like a smoking lounge, that would be noisy, and that would be using it as part of their facility. I think one of the issues that we've seen over the years for code is when that's not, when it's not directly in the CUP saying that this cannot be used for, X, Y, Z, then code is not looking, they're looking at the CUP, and if it doesn't say that, they're not going to issue a citation, even though technically, as, the planning department's intent and some of the lawyers involved said, the intent of this isn't, is so that it's not going to, there's no noise out there, or it's not going to be used because of, it's supposed to be a cafe, and that's stricken. Code doesn't see that, and they're not going to issue a violation. So my inclination, what is it that they're using the courtyard for? Is it just for like a smoking section area, or?
So, my understanding, and I've raised this to them in reference to the one violation they
Your
received
mic,
back in.
yeah,
I'm sorry, what?
Your mic wasn't on.
Oh, I'm
They-
sorry.
They turned it on.
Okay.
It's on.
It was that it's just not being used. Again, to your point, are some people using it like as an outdoors, like the sidewalk when they're?
Or are they
yeah, but
pulling,
there's
like,
no-
are there cars, are there cars back there? Like,
No,
it can't have.
There's no service there, there's no
no-
entertainment, it's not part of the venue, it's not being used. I believe we're complying with the CUP. I can speak to Debbie after this, before, assuming
How
we
do
all
you
do
get
continue.
to it? Is the only way through the venue?
You can get to it through the venue, and there's an opening outside as well.
I guess the question is, how, number one, I do think it's concerning about the noise that pours out. You know,
Yes.
we've had that issue with Mila, and they have done a good job of, you know, having security, you know, handle that. So, I mean, it's not something that can't be fixed. So that's a concern. The other concern is if the neighbors are complaining about the noise from the outdoor area, there's clearly something going on there. I guess, obviously, there's no like formal violation of that other than that one, I think, in October. But, I mean, there's a problem here, and it's not going to get fixed until it gets fixed. So, tell me about the pyrotechnic thing.
So, let me just, I will
Sure,
just
yeah,
answer
yeah.
this question first, so I get my train of thought. So, again, when there are violations, we reach out to code, city attorney's office, what was the violation, try to resolve it. Here, I'm hearing about it here, so I'm gonna reach out to the gentleman, and if it means that we explain to the operators, just, you can't have people out there at all, because it's not your noise or your service, but just people happen to be talking before they come in, it's creating an issue. Maybe, you know, maybe that's what it is. Sometimes-
Technically, is it under their control?
It's part of their lease premises. yes.
So they can lock it up?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. But it's not
Well,
being
I
used-
think unless we want to change the cup, which I wouldn't mind.
That's, I think,
they
where
should-
we're heading.
We
If
should
they
make
can't
them
fix it-
lock that area up.
If they can't fix it themselves and handle the issue,
Of course they can
then
fix it themselves.
Yeah, We're just hearing
Put a
about
lock
this
on
issue,
it.
so we're happy to address it. There's no
Okay.
violations. I wasn't prepared to address it in a level of detail because I didn't know it was an issue. But to your point, yes, we might be able just to lock it up. Well, I'm saying, it may be something for staging, but look, yeah, absolutely. That's the goal. We want to solve this. They don't use it, they're not making money in that area, they're not selling drinks in that area.
Well, then
So
fix it.
if there's an issue that we're hearing about, we want to fix the issue. The pyrotechnics thing, you know, that's something you've seen with a lot of there was, you know, one of these VIP birthday party things, somebody brought those sparklers. That, you know, their employees are trained not to do that. Somebody did it. It was a one-time thing, and it was, you know, I said, and by the way, that occurred prior to us being here last time. It was something that, and I said, listen, you guys are about to get your second strike, you know, nothing, and that the employee was addressed. It's something that happens far too often, and it's a fire issue, and they recognize the concern. But, you know, in retrospect, they've been hit with a lot of issues and have really, I think, done everything they could to address it. This valet thing was out of left field, and it really disrupted everything, and we got it solved, and we helped to get it solved.
To me, the most troubling of all of them is the pyrotechnic issue, because it's the safety concern. It's a really big safety concern. You got a packed club. We've seen what happened what's happened at other clubs. You got an old building, and so, I mean, that's, you know, very concerning to me that either there's not good training of your employees, or there's just the ownership doesn't care, or they see that where this is heading and they figure, let's go out.
In my understanding, just to go with what, because I think this board was very, very much correct, you know, and I'm not, again, my kids know about some of these internet personalities. I learned from them. Used to be cool, not cool anymore. But in any event, the individual that was tied to the club, you know, there was some, and that was during that time. There were some poor decisions made. That person's been removed very decisively, and I
It's
think.
still on their Instagram that
He's been moved.
well, I know, but his name is still on their main profile, and like Cloud's list.
I can tell you that there was a vote. You can also see on Instagram where this individual was, you know, publicly upset that he was removed, and you know, but he's no longer part of the club.
So, I mean, my inclination would be to continue it till at least, you know, number one, I mean, we'll be here sooner if there's another violation. So my inclination would be to hold it over, you know, because September, I mean, everything's dead now, and so I would hold it over till, you know, the January planning board meeting. I don't know.
I'd second that. Give some time for.
Seems to be a long period of time.
But if there's I mean, here's.
Any violation will bring us back?
Yeah.
Any CP violation?
All right,
Okay.
so.
One
Pep,
noise
Can we do
violation
that,
bring
move
us
it
back.
to January,
Okay.
but if a complaint comes in, November, we could reschedule it sooner?
Yes, if we're alerted to any type of violation, we will bring it back sooner. And I'm also happy to bring it back. Hopefully, you know, they'll
Okay,
stay out of
okay.
trouble and we'll bring it back in January.
One noise
Tim,
violation.
Is there anything else that can be, I mean, I think if we come back, I mean, we're definitely going to want to hear from the police department.
And we will make that request
Yeah,
again.
strange, yeah.
The one question I had is because you've discussed the courtyard area, we could clarify that condition today. Because I think the condition is everyone, the applicant's understanding that that area cannot be used by patrons of the establishment. And that's, when I read the CUP, that's my understanding, but maybe if you wanted to clarify that in the order, we could do that today.
I would like to make a motion that the order is explicit, that the courtyard is under their control, and that they need to make sure, as long as it doesn't violate any fire codes, that they can secure it and lock it, and that no one, including their employees, go out in that courtyard. Since they are 5 a.m., and most of their activity probably starts at 2, I think that's imperative that that ends. And that I'd like to put a motion that that's part of the CUP.
I have a critical, just because, and I think we can certainly explore that, but, and Mr. Rosen.
I'm not exploring, I'm making a motion to modify the CUP
Right.
to require the owner to secure that location, and that it is no one, including employees, go out there.
My concern, just as to your motion, if I may, I think that's number one, that's one of the main entrances, ingress and egress. People should not congregate there. It's also a fire issue. If they close that, I think it's a fire issue because it's one of the ingress and egresses. I don't think we can close it, so I just don't want there to be a condition created.
There cannot
I think
be
it
a
would create
push
more
bar on it?
problems. What's that?
They can't close it.
I think it's a required fire exit. And also, it's one of the main entrances. People don't congregate there, there's no service there, but it is a required access point. And it's, yeah, the main entrance, it's the primary entrance. It's a required fire exit. So I'm very comfortable saying it won't be used as part of the premises, meaning we won't have service there, we won't have entertainment there, and that's what we're doing. But it's, to get in and out, you need that open.
The gathering is the thing too, just having people hanging out gathering,
Right.
just like on the sidewalk.
And I'm gonna make sure that that's an important point made to them about congregation, but I just, to lock it, I just don't think that's possible and would create way more issues as far as ingress and egress, and the main entrance would be now inaccessible.
You can't make it a fire exit like we have in every other building. So it's locked, but it has a push bar on the inside so that it can be used, the alarm goes off.
I think it's.
And fire comes.
It's the main entrance, it's how most people get in and out. I just think.
They go through the courtyard to get into the,
Yeah.
to the unit?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the main entrance.
Okay.
And that gets the people off the street. They come in, they hang out in there, well, they get going into the building.
Right.
walking on the street.
Right, if you're going to address the board, we need you on the mic.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, obviously, none of you have actually been to this property, but it's got a hedge all the way around, at least 5 feet taller than I am, and there's just one little entrance to get in. There's a guard that will check your ID. You get into that area, and then the main entrance to the property is from there. Big, huge, 12-foot wide entrance, big, tall doors. That's the way you get into the property, and it is a double-door entrance. The only other entrance there is a VIP entrance off the parking lot in the back. All the way along 23rd Street, there is no entrance. And that was my complaint, is they don't keep that area clean. It's filthy.
All right, and so in light of the noise issues that we're having and the fact that we want to keep that area clear to no gathering, is there a way of wording it to make sure that there is no gathering happening there?
Certainly, you could require that the use of that courtyard only be for egress and ingress.
Correct.
And that there shall be no congregation of patrons within the
At the
courtyard
moment, there
area.
would be people there, they would be in violation, and code compliance could be fining them. All right.
Okay. I'd make that motion.
All right, so we have a motion that that area is restricted to ingress and egress, correct?
Only.
No.
Or it's a code
Only
violation.
egress. It's only, you said ingress and egress, it's
Yeah.
only egress.
It's the main entrance. You have to go through there to the main entrance.
Well, I guess here's what I think that I was saying is that, well, number one, patrons have to queue inside of the property, and no queuing shall occur on the sidewalk or any public right-of-way.
Yeah.
That's the condition that's in there now. What sounds like it's happening is that they're queuing in that courtyard as a way of circumvent, and so there's a lot of people gathering out there causing noise, waiting to get in to the club. And that's problematic because that's causing noise for the neighborhood. And that's never, obviously, you don't want people out on the street for various reasons clogging up the sidewalk, but it's also so you don't bother the next door neighbors. We've seen this, all the time. I mean, there's problems. So that is what I think we're trying to fix, but if we're saying that's the only place to enter
Correct.
the property, then they can't allow queuing. I mean, how are you going to allow huge lines, outdoor, I don't know.
I think it's like most other places, they're supposed to have a place inside that's included.
They queue inside.
Right.
All right, so we need to make it clear on what the motion is. Keith, go ahead.
The motion is that it is for ingress and egress, if I pronounce that correctly, only, no queuing in the courtyards because it could happen at 4 or 5 in the morning, and that if they have an overflow, it has to be adjudicated on the inside. That they check people, and if they're good to go in, they go in. If not, they don't hold them in that area. Otherwise, it's going to cause issues with the neighbors.
That works.
You can
All
word
right.
it how you
We have a
want in the
motion.
actual.
We get a second.
up.
I need a second on that motion.
Any seconds?
Yeah,
Sorry?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Okay, now the second motion was by Jonathan to move it
Mm-hmm.
to
To
January,
continue.
but with the exception that if there are complaints that come in the interim, that we can schedule it sooner, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, can I get a second on that motion?
I'll second that one too.
Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, unanimous. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
James, are you ready? Okay. We're going to go back to the other revocation modification hearing, Planning Board File 21-0442, 743 Washington Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick introduction. So this CUP is also, quite old. It was originally approved in 2008. It was last modified in 2024. And we sent a cure letter in April of this year due to violations associated with failure to notify the police department of the, events or promoted activity at the nightclub. There were several of those violations issued. Since that time, let's see, the last violation we have on record was issued, I think it was December 27th, 2025. Since that time, they have not received any additional violations, and all fees have been paid. So when we wrote the report, they still had, I believe it was $11,000 in outstanding fees that has been paid. So we just want to thank the applicant for that. And we are recommending, however, that we continue this, just to ensure that there are no future violations. So we're recommending a continuance to the September meeting.
Okay, James, hope your appointment went well.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable board members. Thank you for letting me make it to my medical appointment. James Rao, Greensfield Mortar, officer at 600 Brickell Avenue, here on behalf of the operator under this file. Our firm was just recently engaged, but we're requesting continuance. We're requesting the same continuance the staff is recommending to September. As the staff indicated, there's no violations. There are no fines due and owing. So we're just asking it be continued, and we'll address anything that comes up in September, which we don't anticipate.
Anybody in chambers to speak on this item? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, any questions? So want to move it to September?
Yeah, I'll move.
Okay, Keith, can I get a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, all right, we'll see you in September.
Thank you very much.
Okay, on to previously continued applications, Planning Board File, companion 260815 and 0816, 1775 Collins Avenue, LDR Amendment and Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This proposal is for an FAR increase for the Raleigh site, which includes the historic Raleigh, South Seas, and Richmond hotels. This hearing is step 3 in a 6-step process for FAR increases. Last month, we had the initial meeting and a public workshop, which were steps 1 and 2. The workshop was well attended with 4 speakers, and a summary of feedback from the workshop has been passed out for the board's information. After the board makes a recommendation, the process will continue with a first reading at commission, a second public workshop, and a second reading at commission. The applicant is proposing to increase the FAR from 2.0 to 2.5 for RM3 oceanfront lots within the architectural district that exceed 100,000 square feet as of January 1st, 2026. These criteria would only apply to the Raleigh site. All other properties within the architectural district that exceed 100,000 square feet were aggregated prior to November 14th, 1998, and are eligible for a greater 3.0 FAR. The proposed 0.5 FAR increase represents an additional approximately 66,000 square feet of floor area. The applicant has submitted preliminary massing plans to show how the additional FAR could be distributed. The requested code amendments do not alter existing height or density maximums, and any revised design for the project will require review by the Historic Preservation Board. Given the size of the property and the importance of the 3 historic buildings, staff is generally supportive of the proposal and recommends the board transmit a favorable recommendation to the mayor and city commission.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gonzalez?
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board. My name is Alfredo Gonzalez, Office of 333 Southeast 2nd Avenue with Greenberg Torg, on behalf of the applicant, Nala Raleigh LLC. With me today, I have from ownership, Genghis Hadid. We have other representatives from the project team, as well as from Kobe Carp's office, Matt McCard. Well, we were here last month, and we did do a full presentation. We were going to try to do a shorter presentation, since you've seen, we've had, since our last meeting, we've had our community meeting, as staff has said, and gotten feedback, and we're continuing to work on this project. Today's request is strictly a 0.5 increase in FAR, and but before I start the presentation, I know Mr. Hadid had come in for the hearing, wanted to say a few words, the developer. So I'm going to introduce him, and then I'll get into the PowerPoint. I'm right here.
Good morning. Thank you again for the time today. Appreciate everybody's focus on this very important project. As I introduced last time and reiterate today, there is nothing more important in our business right now than the Raleigh Hotel. Our team has continued to work tirelessly. We have, since our June 2nd meeting, in the past month, we have spent 25% more than I had told you. At that time, we had invested already $4 million into the asset. That's specifically into the hotel. We're now at $5 million. We're not stopping. Our goal is to continue to move forward at a rapid pace. We do continue to believe that our request is appropriate given the size and scale of the project. We're fully dedicated to the preservation of the property and the hotel, in line with this request as previously presented. There is nothing more important to us than getting this project going and not wasting any more time. And we're not wasting any time. We appreciate your attention to this. We appreciate Alfredo's work on this and Kobe Carp's team. Everybody's working weekends, nights, holidays, to get this project off the ground as fast as possible. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions, and I'm here for anything that you may want to discuss. Thank you.
Appreciate those comments.
Could we get the PowerPoint up, please? Thank you. So obviously, I'm just going to I'll skim fast through the presentation. I know you've seen parts of it. Obviously, this is historic Raleigh and historic images. This is going back to the work that was done, the restoration, and this Nala Capital is the 5th owner in over 14 years. And one concern when the new ownership took over was the fact that the Raleigh hadn't been boarded up or protected in over 9 years. And as I said at the last meeting, by May 1st, all that was completed. So shore grazing.
It's been open, right?
Huh?
Has it been closed or open?
It's been closed. It was closed in 2017 after when Tommy Hilfiger, 2 owners ago.
So it's been
3
closed
owners
for
ago.
almost 10 years?
Huh?
It's been closed for almost 10 years?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
So for about 14 years, there's been several ownerships to redesign the Raleigh. Back in 2017, Tommy Hilfiger Group acquired development rights through HPB and pulled the permit and stripped the Raleigh to what everyone's been, to this image that everyone's been looking at for over 9 years. And that continued until this year with the current ownership hearing their own concerns and the concerns of staff and the city that this building was being unprotected and God forbid there was some kind of storm. So that's why what you see now.
When was it acquired?
It was acquired at the end of October 2025. So they immediately started getting access to the site when they had full control in December and realizing the conditions of the Raleigh, and we've been working with the city ever since. So they went immediately to get permits and address. So you'll see the facade, all the interior bracing and shoring that was done in the interior as well was completed, and they've cleaned up the pool. And then one thing that I know staff has been for years or over a decade looking to have it removed was there was a penthouse addition in the 90s. And while it was under permit, had never been actually removed. Now that the building has been braced and protected, the current ownership has gone and removed it. And then this was a dune crossover behind the Richmond Hotel that was in disrepair for years. And again, they got it done before May 1st, so not to interfere with hurricane season or, and it's now back in the public eye. That was one comments we were getting from the city, that they were concerned about and complaints that this was in disrepair and had been for several years. So I want to give you context. What this project is asking for is a 0.5 FAR. And as staff and James and Debbie mentioned, it would really apply to only large-scale sites within this area. It's about a 5-block area that several other sites already are grandfathered, I guess, at a much higher FAR. And just to give you a scope, this is an overlay of the RM3 district and the Miami Beach Architectural District oceanfront sites. So you'll see that there is already 4 sites. You have the Setai. I understand Setai is over a 6.0 FAR. That was done before the 1996 down zoning.
2001 is the Setai?
Yes, 2101 is the Setai. That's number 1.
Yeah.
Then you have the Shore Club and the
Short Club's 1901?
Yes, sir. Shore Club is 1901. Then you go to site number 3, which is our site, the Raleigh Richmond South Seas. And then you go to 4, which is the Ritz-Carlton Sagamore site. The Ritz-Carlton site and the Shelbourne site, sorry, not Shelbourne, Shore Club, are at 3.15 FAR, which is the 3.0 FAR plus a bonus of up to 1.5. So out of the only large-scale sites in this area, and I didn't include all the way in the southern tip, the Lowe's. The Lowe's is at 425 FAR. The Luxury Lowe's Hotel is in the RM3. The Royal Palm, that's part of the complex, is in the MXC. So since it was a little confusing, I left it out. But again, only the few large-scale sites. This does not open the door to other sites. And outside of this bracket, anywhere else on oceanfront property in RM3, as long as they're over 45,000 square feet, almost a third of what our site is, over 137, would automatically have a 3.0 FAR. So what we're asking for today is for this board to recommend to help this project move forward and get built as fast as possible, this 25%, which equates to about 66,000 square feet of FAR increase. We're not asking to be treated the same as the other 2 large sale sites in that area, which are at 3.15, which would have meant about 152,000 square feet of additional FAR. We stuck it to the 0.5. And just so you know, we're not asking for any density increases. I mean, this project was clearly, before it started, the Richmond South Seas and the 3 hotels had over 300 hotel units. It's been entitled since 2020 at 84 residential units and 86 hotel units. With this FAR, the current ownership is looking at having at maximum 52 units and under 80 hotel rooms. So it's still a reduction from what was entitled.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so the added FAR is going to go where? Where's
the added FAR? And I'll talk to you about that. Part of it's going to go into the new tower. There's a proposal to, and right now we're still working on massings. Remember, this project, once the FAR is approved, we will be able to submit to the HPB in order to apply that 0.5. And so hopefully successfully get that 0.5 allocated throughout the site. So at that point, we'll have detailed plans. What you've seen is what's required under the FAR is to have some massing, to have general ideas of where everything's going, to give this board that indication. That's what the images that I have, and I'll show you. will have.
And remind us, is this just going to be a hotel or is it a condo hotel?
It's going to be a combination. So it'll be it's still going to have a rosewood flag, as Genghis had told you before.
Can I chime in on that? Yeah, just to put some context, this is a 3-acre site, so this is a very significant property. It was previously 3 hotels that have all been combined into one property, the Raleigh, the Richmond, the South Seas. This will take about $1 billion of reinvestment into this site to achieve what we're asking for as part of this application. It'll be multiple restaurants, it'll be a hotel, it'll be a residences, there'll be landscape gardens.
But each of the three buildings will remain.
Will remain, absolutely.
separate.
Absolutely. We're keeping the integrity of what the HPB has requested, and our intention is preservation, right? I mean, the goal is to keep the soul of this property. It is not to demolish anything that's.
Right, but
that's
all
our-
three that were once separate hotels will all be now run by one
Correct.
flag, all
There'll be
called
one
the same.
flag, but they will remain independent buildings.
Okay.
They will
And
not
each
be
building
physical.
will have condos and hotels?
No, the condos will be a separate building
Okay.
on the site. Because it's a 3-acre site, you have
Got
the
it.
space, and it was
Okay, that's
previously
what I
approved
wondered.
for
So
that,
there's
yeah.
going to be a separate condo towers?
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
the three existing buildings will remain hotel?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Of the picture you showed, which one?
I'm going that way.
Okay, you're going that way.
I-
Great. I'll wait.
No, I'm happy. So just wanted to be clear that with this 0.5 of FAR, it's not also requesting any type of height increase. We're operating under the existing zoning on RM3, which permits up to 200 feet for sites, and 200 feet is typically found in a lot of oceanfront sites within the historic district, and more historic districts along the oceanfront. In addition to this, the owner had proposed public benefits to improve 18th Street, over $1 million contribution. Obviously, we're restoring the 3 L. Murray Dixon buildings to their original 1940s facades, because they had been altered in the 50s, especially the Richmond and South Seas. It obviously added security in addition to the security that is provided for the Raleigh site, and introduction of an arts and cultural program that works within the Raleigh site and also in the public right-of-way in conjunction with the city of local artists. But these are some of the renderings of what this building. The historic structures are accurate. They're based on the building permit sets. So you'll see the Raleigh. What you're looking behind the Raleigh would be the new tower. Here's a street straight on. You see the Richmond, the South Seas, and the Raleigh. And to answer some of your questions you were talking about, so there'll be activations in the lobbies of the Richmond, the South Seas. Obviously, the main entrance is the Raleigh Hotel. Will be flagged under the Rosewood, but the whole site will be controlled. There are basements, and then the residential towers in the rear. When you see this image, understand that with this massing, we just basically, for this purpose, we added 2 levels of the already permitted building. So just the 2 top floors is what potentially in some iteration would come back with that 0.5 FAR. The rest of the building is currently permitted. And that ends up another image.
And that height of that tower is what's permitted there? It looks huge.
It's 200 feet. It's what is permitted under code at 200. So, I mean, obviously it has to go to the HPB to approve it, but we're not asking for there's no text amendment.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Greater height. Unlike, I know there's some text amendments that were approved and reviewed throughout parts of the historic district that allow different heights. This is 200, which, and happy to talk to you about the numerous sites in the historic districts, oceanfront sites. 200 has been the standard since the 90s.
Okay.
Based on preliminary massing, how many units do you have in there?
About 52.
Great.
And then that's just the street front view. At this point, what I like to do is just reserve to rebuttal. I know there's going to be a lot of discussions, and maybe I'll rebut, and then I can answer any questions.
All right,
that the
let
board
me
may
open the
have.
public hearing and then we'll go from there. All right,
Perfect.
anyone
Thank
in
you very much.
chambers to speak on this?
Are there any ex parte disclosures before we hear from the public?
None.
Do we need disclosures on that code?
Oh, this, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's legislative, so we don't need
Yeah.
to.
Yes, ma'am. And I know you know this, but just introduce yourself and your affiliation. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Amanda Corkhand. I'm with AQH Law, offices at 1395 Brickell Avenue, Suite 800. I'm here on behalf of the Shelbourne Hotel. It's the abutting property owner. My client is here, Mitchell Cohen. He's going to also speak on the record from a more personal basis, but from a legal perspective, I'd like to point out a couple of facts because the board picked up on it right away. I think somebody said that the tower looks huge. The first page in the materials that I passed out, and I have given one to Mr. Gonzalez, is an aerial of what the site looks like as of the current Google aerial. It shows a relatively blank slate. So where we put the FAR is important, but it's flexible because this is a 3-acre site. You have the Raleigh Hotel still standing, you have the pool, and then you have the facades of the 2 smaller hotels. So there is a lot of flexibility as to where you put the FAR. And on behalf of my client, he does not object to the additional FAR. The height is the issue. It is out of scale. It is out of context with the neighborhood. It is out of context with the architectural district. So on page 1, I'm showing you that it's a relatively blank slate where we can put the FAR other places. You can also see the height context from around 15th to 20th. That would be the tallest building. If you're looking at the rest of the buildings, they're all about
Let me
one.
interrupt, but you would, it's permitted though, correct?
There is a code provision that allows 200 feet, but that does not mean that it has to be granted. The current building permit is for 175 feet, and in fact, there was a lot of work done at the Historic Preservation Board. I think Mr. Needleman mentioned that before. I think at the last planning board hearing, he said, well, if we approve a building that was 200 feet, it'd be undoing all the work that the HPB did before. In other words, this was a controversial project before. There is a building permit for a 175-foot building. That is not opposed. That was part of a resolution of previous debates between the Shelbourne Hotel and the Raleigh. So what we're asking for today is for the board to add a condition onto the legislation. This is a proposed LDR, and the board has the ability to make modifications. I do believe that this is the last time this board will hear this item, so this is your last opportunity to weigh in. But the proposed 200-foot tower is out of context with the historic and architectural district, and so we respectfully request that the language be modified such that any new construction would not be taller, height greater than any of the abutting properties. As Ms. Tackett pointed out at the previous planning board meeting,
What do you consider the abutting properties?
the Shelbourne and the property to the
How
south.
high is the Shelbourne?
It's 150 with like a mechanical.
Just a question on that.
You can see it on, I think it's page 3 of the handout.
So I'm on page 3, so separate from the, I guess, adjacent properties, if we look at the context of everything you're showing, I mean, you got Shore Club at 225, Ritz at over 200, Setai at close to 400, W at 230. I mean, it seems like they are within the context, separate from, again, just the neighboring properties.
Well, from 15th to 20th, you're looking at about 150 feet with some tower features. I mean, you look at the Ritz, there's that spindle that gets it to 204. You're looking at the rest of the buildings, they're in the 150 range with, little mechanical towers or something like that. There's nothing that's 200 feet in that range.
Okay, just so you know, we can't modify it. What we can do is make recommendations.
Well, yes, your recommendation
Just
could
letting you
be,
know, we don't have the power to modify it. We can recommend,
understood.
just to be clear.
Yes, understood. So we are respectfully requesting that the recommendation be that that the proposed legislation be modified such that the maximum height of any new construction would not be higher than the abutting properties. I think that would keep the height in context and will also be a way for the developer to get the additional FAR that they want for their pro forma. There is no objection to the additional FAR. It is where the FAR is placed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in chambers? Sir?
Good morning, everybody. Mr. Chair, members of the board. Mitchell Cohen, Shelbourne Hotel, 1801 Collins Avenue. Every planning decision asks a simple question. Are we protecting the public interest, or are we solving a private problem? Today, I respectfully submit that you're being asked to solve a private problem. I reviewed the video of the June 2nd committee meeting, and at 54 minutes into the hearing, counsel for the applicant talked about the errors that his client uncovered during due diligence. Developing 101, you check out the property, you know what it's going to cost, and you build in the risk. The way I view it, the applicant is now coming back and trying to cash in an insurance policy that says, I want 25% more FAR to make my project economical. Again, as my counsel indicated, and I indicated at the last meeting, I have no problem with FAR. Again, it's just math and it's contextual. But to add 25 feet to this tower, it's not right. It's out of context, it's out of character, and I think it impacts the heritage features of South Beach. Additionally, at the June 30th public meeting, counsel for the applicant also said that once this project is completed, the Raleigh's Pool will have more sunlight than it did in the 1950s. Well, I feel that the applicant is asking you to take the sunlight away from me and give it to him. I don't think it's right. I'm fine with FAR, but in terms of sun, shadow, the HPB went to great lengths to make this building 175 and fit in as best as it could, and this application unwinds it with the additional height. Again, you're being asked to solve a private due diligence problem. And height and density should be granted on planning matters, on guidelines, on good justification, not somebody who discovered that the numbers just don't add up. So I respectfully ask that the FAR at 2.5, I'm okay with it, but I don't think 25 feet should automatically be added to the applicant's proposal for the tower at the back, which unwinds everything that has been done. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
additional time. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ma'am?
Good morning, planning board members. My name is Meg Lusto. I'm the executive director of the Miami Design Preservation League. For the past several years, MDPL has watched proposal after proposal come forward for the renovation of the Raleigh Hotel. During that time, a succession of developers has presented plans to restore this iconic Art Deco landmark. Changes in ownership and the resulting delays have taken a heavy toll. Today, little remains of the original building beyond its facade, while the original terrazzo floors and many other historic features have been lost. The current developer has submitted a proposal that is largely consistent with plans previously approved both by you, the Planning Board, and the Historic Preservation Board. However, it includes one significant change, a request to amend the RM3 zoning district regulations to increase the allowable floor area ratio from 2.0 to 2.5. After reviewing the application, meeting with the developer, and carefully considering the proposal, MDPL opposes the requested increase in FAR. We are genuinely encouraged by the vision presented for the restoration and reactivation of the Raleigh, the Richmond, and the South Seas. These are among Miami Beach's most iconic historic hotels, and we appreciate the applicant's commitment to investing in their preservation and ensuring their continued vitality. We support the overall goal of bringing these remarkable buildings back to life in a manner that celebrates their architectural significance. Our support for the preservation of these historic buildings, however, does not extend to the proposed FAR increase and concurrent addition of 2 stories to the new oceanfront tower. From the beginning, MDPL has expressed concern about the scale and presence of the tower on the east side of the property. Increasing its height from 175 to 200 feet only exacerbates those concerns. A building of this size and character immediately adjacent to the beach is fundamentally at odds with the historic oceanfront setting that makes this part of Miami Beach so special. We note that the 2 proposed additional stories atop the new tower account for the vast majority of the increased development area that would be made possible by the FAR request, approximately 44,000 of the 66,000 additional square feet that this FAR would grant. Indeed, these added floors appear to be the primary reason for seeking the FAR increase. We are also concerned, however, about the remaining 22,000 square feet of new development proposed elsewhere on the property. I'm almost done if I can
Go
continue.
ahead.
More importantly, approving these additional floors would establish a precedent that extends well beyond this project. Should the city determine that greater height and density are appropriate along this stretch of the beachfront to address project economics, it'll become increasingly difficult to deny similar requests in the future. That is not a precedent we believe the city should set. If additional development rights are necessary to support the restoration, the city should explore alternatives that do not further increase the height and prominence of the beachfront tower. We are committed to working toward a solution that preserves both the economic viability of the project and the historic character that makes the Raleigh, the Richmond, and the South Seas worthy of preservation. For these reasons, MDPL opposes the proposed FAR increase and respectfully urges the Planning Board to transmit the proposed ordinances amending the land use development regulations and the comprehensive plan to the City Commission with an unfavorable recommendation.
Okay, one question. I know you're reading a script, and I appreciate that. But if you take away the height for a minute, what is the concern about additional FAR? I know you said that after careful consideration, but what are the concerns? Do you know, or are you prepared to answer that?
Well, I mean, it's a large site. There's plenty of room on the site right now, and this is a
But is
condition.
it the height the primary concern, or you just don't want any?
The height is a primary concern, but we're also concerned that someone who had the opportunity to do due diligence and knew the development restrictions came in and said, bought the property, acquired the property, and then after the fact said, well, now my numbers don't work, or something to that effect, and is now asking for what amounts to a tremendous increase in economic value for the property.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody else in chambers? Ray?
Hi, I'm here to talk about Historic Preservation Board. A couple of months ago, when Ritz-Carlton came before us and wanted to build their tower, we had a whole bunch of people come in saying, we don't want that tower, we don't want that tower. Well, we said, our job is if they didn't ask for a variance, we look at the design. We don't look at the height. The only people that can really decide that is the commission. And if the current zoning is for 200 feet, the commission can say, we want to change our mind. But that is what they currently have, and that is what was approved for the Ritz-Carlton. And you know, like, I'm not here to say whether it's right or wrong, but your board and the HPB is the wrong place to come to talk about height. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in chambers? Anybody on Zoom? No. Alfredo, remind me, the original application that you all made was for 175 feet, and then it was amended to increase 25. Just explain that.
I'm sorry, you wanted me to explain?
Just the evolution of that request.
Of the request of
To
the
increase
HPV?
to 200 feet? Or was it always? If I understood, the original application you all made was for 175 feet?
No.
There's,
And I could add,
there was no request to increase, so the code allows you to go to 200 feet. HPB is who decides or votes on whether or not the 200-foot is approved. So Shore Club got approved at 200 feet. Ritz got approved.
Okay,
at
my question was,
182.
you guys, from the beginning,
So
that was
there's no
your,
request here for 200 feet.
huh?
you mean, under the current ownership, the only request that's before you and the only request we've made at this point is a 0.5 increase of FAR. We're not asking for.
Okay, yeah, because there was
no density.
representations
There's no
that-
additional
that the-
density request.
No,
or
let me
height.
talk.
Yes.
There were some representations that it was for 175 feet, and my understanding is that you're asking for additional. In fact, since the day your client has purchased this property, it's always been the expectation of 200 feet, because that's what's allowed. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, and I could go through some of it because there was a lot of things said, and I want to clarify some misstatements and just.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it would help. And then I'm happy to answer any questions. So, this building and project is in the RM3 district, where allows up to 200 feet. That is what's in the resiliency code today. So we could go and file an application to modify the existing building and make changes and go.
Is
from-
Setai in the same district?
Huh?
Is the Setai in the same
Yes,
district?
but that's pre-1996.
No, I get it.
But
So
I mean,
back then, so the commission has lowered, obviously,
yes,
the
in
height
the
restriction.
90s, there was a Save Miami Beach movement that some of those who were around will remember, and it reduced the FAR. Before, this site had about a 6.0 FAR, just so you know, like before in the 90s. It was reduced, and the city made an evaluation, a decision at that time, that the maximum height, standard maximum height, what on oceanfront lots in the RM3, which is our most dense area, would be 200 feet. And that's what you find from all of the entire RM3 district. Within the architectural division, some tweaks and changes, that some extra hurdles that only allow that 200 feet to go to large-scale sites. So typically, for example, if you were in the Collins Historic District in Mid-Beach, you could, if you were a 45,000 square foot lot, a third of our size, you automatically could go to 3.0 FAR. You could go to 200 feet. You could apply. I mean, I made it clear. Everything has to go through a hearing process. And so,
What
yes,
I'm
sir.
trying to understand, the ordinances that we're being asked to recommend, they don't address the height because the height's already in the code.
Correct.
Okay.
It only addresses a 0.5, approximately 66,000 square feet
So
of
the height's not
FAR.
even before us then, if I understand.
That's what's before you today. And what I wanted to make clear, because I know there's been a lot of discussions. Yes, when this project originally went back in 2019, 2020 under the previous owner, there were lengthy Historic Preservation Board meetings because that's the venue where the city has determined these type of projects, any project once it's been developed, has to go through HPB or DRB, depending on the zoning. That this is HPB.
Right,
there
but
were-
could HPB did not, if the commission leaves
Yes, sir.
under the existing ordinances, okay, where you're allowed 200 feet, can HPB even reject the 200 feet? I know they can address other issues.
I can
Well, they-
speak to that, Mr. Chair, the HPB, in reviewing a specific application for a certificate of appropriateness, could condition its approval on the basis of the appropriateness criteria. That may include by reducing the height or
Oh,
increasing.
they can do
setback.
that, even though the existing ordinance allows the 200 feet. I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
they could,
understand.
they could do that on the basis of their review criteria.
Okay.
Brian, can I jump in?
Sure.
I sat on the
Love for
HPP
you
back
to,
then, and
sure.
we did have a number of meetings. The concern was, at least my concern, and I think the concern of the board was this the proposed tower is probably further east than any of the other adjoining buildings, or far east. That was the concern at the time, and it was thought that it would sort of overwhelm the beach walk and the beach. And even though the height was, the allowable height was 200 feet, what we decided was, what the board came up with, in negotiation over the course of all the meetings, was that the building would only go up to 175 feet. And I believe the top 2 or 3 floors were set back a little bit, so there's a little bit of a step. That was the concern, and that's why it wasn't approved at 200 feet back then. Honestly, I sat on the board then. That's still a concern for me. I know what you're proposing is 200 feet and probably getting rid of those, that step back. I personally, I can't see myself going back on that. I'm not opposed to a 0.5 FAR increase. It's that height and it's the location of that tower that I have a concern with. I'm looking at the package that was handed out with the site, and it is a rather large site, and there does seem to be some room on there to maybe move the tower, push it back a little bit or do something. Quite honestly, again, I'm not on the HPB now, and I couldn't really answer this definitively unless I saw a plan, but if that tower was pushed quite a bit back from the beach, I'd be okay with the 200 feet. Where it's located now, so close to the beach walk, it would go against everything that we talked about years ago over the course of many meetings on the planning board.
Hold on a
I'm
second.
sorry, on the HPB.
Give me 1 second.
Before we get into questions. Oh,
One
sorry.
second. Nick and Debbie, so I want to understand, I mean, there can be concern about height, but if this ordinance that's before us doesn't address height, I just don't understand what our even ability is, because it doesn't provide for height in this ordinance. So
We can make a recommendation separately.
but that's about that's to go back on what the existing ordinance are, have nothing to do with this ordinance.
But you could condition your recommendation on this change, because what you're looking at is, you're right, this change before you does not include a modification to the height, it's
Correct.
only FAR. But you could recommend that for a project that seeks to avail itself of the additional FAR, that the height has to be reduced. You could recommend that as a condition of the FAR increase.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure I understood what our power is. Go ahead.
Before you open up the questions, I'd really like to do a rebuttal.
Sure.
I want the board to understand and be clear on a lot of things you heard, some of which are inaccurate. So, just so you understand, and it's true, the HPB is the body that is dictated by the city to evaluate this proposal. We're not asking for 200 feet. We're suggesting that it's one of the areas we want to put the FAR if this board and ultimately the commission grants it. We'll have to go back to historic preservation, and they'll have to evaluate. When they evaluated back in 2020 and in 2019, they did. We had a lot of discussions of where the tower should be located. Actually, this tower, part of the requirement is that it's set back 100 feet from the property line, which is a greater setback than what would have been required had that not been done. So the building was moved back further from the ocean. There was a competing challenge because HPB had deep, extensive conversations, not only on some people who were concerned about the shadows on the beach, which is standard all along the beach, but also others were concerned if you put the tower too close to the historic buildings. So there was a balancing act. That's the balancing act we understand that we will have to go through once we know what the FAR for the site ultimately will be, if the commission ultimately approves at 2.5. We'll have a plan, we'll suggest where our FAR should be placed within that site, and then the board will evaluate and do a thorough review comparing what happened in 2019, 2020. Staff will evaluate the actual plans, not massing studies, to see what the impacts and where the best location, whether the 200 feet is appropriate, is it 185, whatever that, is it a fatter building, thinner building, all those things will be taken into account at HPB. But I also wanted to.
So Scott, what's your view on that? I mean, should we be usurping the HPB's role, or? Because, see, for me, the tough part is that, if you look at the immediate vicinity, it looks out of context. But if you take that whole district, it's not. So, and yet HPB will.
I agree with that. And, I mean, you heard from the city attorney. We can recommend. It's in our purview to recommend.
Right.
But, I'm saying, look, like I mentioned before, I sat on the HPB back then.
Well, that's why I said, you think we should leave it to them?
Go through all these meetings. You said usurping their authority.
Right.
It would be like usurping what I did before and what the board did before. So that's why I just feel that, I couldn't, again, I don't have an issue with the FAR increase.
Right, it doesn't sound
It's just
like,
that.
other than
that
one
height.
objection, it seems like nobody has a problem with the
Yeah,
FAR.
that's the only concern I have with the project. And I just
You'll have your time. Go ahead.
don't want to go back on what we did before.
And I understand, and I respect that.
And again, we're just a recommendation.
Yeah, I get it.
I have one question for the
But I
architect,
do have
sorry,
some-
just 1 second, so I can understand kind of what the request is. If you were to increase the FAR and you're reducing the height, obviously you have, let's call it a wider building. Wouldn't that create more of a shade situation for the neighboring assets, I guess, north and south?
It would, because you would end up with a building, if we're 200 feet long now, and you're increasing the FAR, your building could go 250, 275 feet long.
Right.
It would get closer to the historic buildings, and it would create a much wider shadow as the day would go through across the entire site and to the beach. The length of the shadow would be reduced. It may only go to the end to 18th Street, to the north, but it would get much bigger.
That was discussed
So,
years ago again.
Skinnier and taller may be a much less impactful shadow as it moves across throughout the day.
What was discussed back years ago was wider north-south instead of east-west. But I don't remember if that was ever, maybe they, at the time, they considered it, but I mean, I remember suggesting that. Instead of going so high, just make it a little wider north-south, which gives you the FAR, and it wouldn't be as tall, and you're not being, you're not lengthening it east-west, which would cause more shadow.
We did make it wider, but we stayed within the site constraints because of the sight lines that you have with the Raleigh from the east on the beach, and then looking, with the setbacks on the south, so you kind of have this natural setback to the north, which is the sightline of the Raleigh. You want to maintain and preserve that. So there are ways to make it wider if we push into that sightline.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm looking at this that was handed out, and it does seem like it's almost a blank slate.
But that exhibit has a lot of inaccuracies, and I will point them out when I
It's a
get to my
picture.
report. No, it's a picture, it's true. But as you were on the board back in 2020, when there was countless hours of debate of how you would relocate the tower. We had a fatter tower, longer tower, taller, and where to place it. And while I understand you, as one of the board members at that time, were concerned about shadows on the beach, that was your number one concern. Others didn't agree with you. They were concerned about impacts on the Richmond South Seas and Raleigh Historic Building and the historic pool. So there was a competing on that board of different opinions. And what I'm suggesting is, at the end of the day, we have to go back to that board and let them reevaluate. They may agree that some extra height is valuable. They may say no, but it will be fully vetted at the Historic Preservation Board that ultimately approved the 2019 and 2020 HB order that this is running under. So, but I wanted to be really quick and clarify a couple of things. So it is it's not a blank slate. There's a building permit there today of a 175-foot tower. And I already talked about the second page. There were statements made about how the Shelbourne's 150. And your exhibit that you have is missing a lot of heights. If you go to our exhibit, they copied our exhibit, they just erased the tall heights. So you lost the reference to 171 feet at the Shelbourne, the 150 at the SLS, the 185 at the Ritz-Carlton, the 183 and 137. So somehow you didn't get a full picture, but if you look at our exhibit, you have all the actual heights that were posed. And when they talk about the shadows, and it should be clear, the first exhibit is a shadow of 175, that December 21, at 175 feet, they have a shadow. They do have a shadow on the permitted building 1 month a year for a couple weeks, a couple hours a day. No one's entitled to have 100% non-shadow. Actually, some of the shadow is caused by their own building and their own site conditions that they've created. So I wanted to be clear, this makes it seem that if you put a 200-foot tower, it's also going to create a new condition. That's not accurate. Yes, we do have an impact of shadows, slightly increased impact from 175 to 200 in January. But again, this is a massing study that we started with. And for HPB, we would have to really hone in, see how we tweak the cutbacks as we did before. All that's on the table to see how it can minimize the impact to not just Shelbourne, but to the beach walk and to the historic buildings. But I did also want to refer that the historic Raleigh pool, yes, and it's an accurate statement. It was made at HPB. It was shown that prior to this project even getting underway, and the demo permits that were issued after 2020, the Raleigh since the 50s, when there was additions done by the Richmond, had an 8-story towers, 5 feet from the property line, and what I call the 3-story barracks. So the whole side of the Raleigh during that period of time, until our modern time, was casted in shadows a good part of the day. So with the tower placement, considering where we placed the tower, the board looked extensively, the openness between the tower and the historic buildings, you ended up creating, and our shadow studies showed it in HPB, that it improved and you would actually get more sun and light and air at the historic Raleigh pool, which is an iconic pool, and we could all agree on that, one of the most iconic pools in the entire city, was getting more sun and light and air with this project than leaving the existing conditions. I did, so at the end of the day, I also wanted to make one comment that we're not using the majority, the vast majority, as it's quoted in a letter you received, on those potential two floors. We're talking about a maximum of 30,000 square feet. That's less than 50% of the FAR we would obtain. Most of the FAR is actually going historic and other infill elements that makes this project viable. That's where the FAR, so it's inaccurate to say that 44,000, we can't. Our footprint at largest case is 15,000. So that suggests that we're putting 2 floors at 22,000 square feet doesn't meet the code. And we're not asking for a text amendment to do that, to make our building taller and wider. I also wanted to, I know there was a lot of statements made about my client on his acquisition. He did want to make a quick rebuttal statement on things that were made on his decisions to acquire the property and move forward.
Okay, in the meantime, I have one more quick, Dick, I want to make sure, again, I'm sorry about procedure. I want to know the answer to this question. If we pass this on favorably without a discussion about height, okay, and the height stays at 200 feet permissible, HPB can still require that the building be lower than 200 feet?
Yes.
Is that is
On
that
the-
an accurate statement?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because my view, I mean, this is just me, that we let HPB decide if that's appropriate or not. But go ahead.
No, I appreciate the commentary today and the consideration. You know, I just want to reiterate, right? I've had the fortune and opportunity to develop in cities like Miami Beach that are very preservation conscious. And that's why when we approach projects, we don't approach them with requests that would be viewed quite controversially, 300 feet and 4 FAR, and let's be really aggressive about it. We approach these projects from the perspective of what will it take to get these done? Let's get this project built. Let's not debate over something that then continues to sit vacant for the next 10 years. It is true, after we acquired the site and we were able to get our physical hands on the property, that the Raleigh Hotel was crumbling. And my first call was to Alfredo to say, what do we do? This is not going to survive another hurricane season if we get hit by a hurricane. It's just not going to. And the decision on our side was made to immediately protect the hotel. And these are decisions made because we care about the project that we're invested in. There's a significant amount of capital committed to this. We don't believe, if we were to zoom out and we were to look at this in context of the scale of the investment taking place, the rebirth of an icon of Miami Beach, the investment that this will draw, the tax dollars that this will create, that even if we go back and stay within our right of 200 feet, that should even be viewed as controversial. Now, I understand everybody's got different perspectives. We also don't think that the square footage being requested is significant in the scale of the site. It's a 3-acre site. So I do just make the statement because we're not asking you to make a private investment decision. That is absolutely not the case. And in doing so, I'm also asking you not to make a private investment decision about somebody else's pool being covered for 2 hours a day for 3 weeks in the year. I think the context should be what is appropriate for the Raleigh, for 3 acres of property on South Beach, what is appropriate for this neighborhood that has had to look at a building that has been crumbling over the last 10 years, and the number of calls that I've received as an owner saying, when the hell is this going to get built? It's time for this to get built. So all we ask is we look at this in the context of what is appropriate for the neighborhood, for Miami Beach, and allow us to continue to move this forward so that this project can get going. Thank you.
And I just want to add, thank you.
All right,
I
last
just wanna
thing,
add-
and we got to move on.
I know. Just had 2 more quick points. Number one, you do have a list of support letters before you, and notably, the first support letter is the Marseille. The only abutting property to the Raleigh site is the Marseille. They are supporting the FAR increase, and they supported the 200-foot building when it was proposed in 2020, and if ultimately HPB approves, they're supportive of HPB supporting a 220 building as 200-foot building again if we propose that to HPB. So that letter is there. And I also wanted to make it clear, this amendment would, as proposed by the Shelburne Council, would mean that we would have to lose 50 feet of the permanent building to take the FAR. Because it clearly says abutting oceanfront lots. Well, abutting oceanfront lot and abutting properties have to, under the city definition, have to be abutting. Abutting is, they share property lines, not across the street. I'm not comparing myself to what's on the west side of Collins Avenue. And the Marseille is at 127 feet. So if you approve this amendment, you're telling me you want the FAR, remove 50 feet of the existing permanent building. And again, I really think that the appropriate venue to debate and to see what makes sense, where should we locate the building and what the appropriate height, looking at all the factors, is going back to the Historic Preservation Board and let them have the detailed plans and staff have the detailed plans and can make an evaluation. And ultimately, that board will decide how to use it. And with that, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, oh, and besides you, one second, anybody else in here to speak on this? All right, I'm gonna give you a last minute, and then we're gonna close the public hearing. Well,
Just only to speak on the comment about the requested amendment. If the amendment language is problematic because of the interpretation of abutting properties, you can just make it 175. There's an existing building permit for 175. We don't object to 175. We don't object to the 2.5 FAR. The proposed amendment is, if you're going to take advantage of the 2.5 FAR, then you're going to agree to the 175 foot height. It's an ask and then a concession. So that is the
understood.
request.
Okay, understood. Okay, closing the public hearing. Again, my view is that I would rather the HPB address this, but obviously welcome to your comments.
It's a question of whether or not we want to make a recommendation towards a height.
Well, you can, I mean,
Right.
it depends on the recommendation. I would not be in favor of saying only recommending it favorably if you lower the height. I
Right.
would rather say we recommend it favorably. Please take a look at whether you believe this is in context. Something a little more benign. Because at the end of the day, if what Nick said is true, that HPB can require that it be lower,
Right.
when they see all the project, I'd rather let
I
them
think-
decide.
and I
That's
think-
their decision.
Right, I think HPB tends
Just
to
in
be
front of
more-
us is the FAR conversation.
Right,
that's
and
why-
HPB tends to be
I think that we
conservative
should-
in a lot of these issues more than the planning board. So I think that our
That's all my
job today is to decide if we want
That's
to.
my view, so.
Right, so I can make a
concur.
motion if unless anyone wants to.
Well, I mean,
Go ahead,
Just
Jonathan.
looking at FAR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very troubled by the blockage of the Shelbourne's pool. You know, they put $100 million into it. They preserved all the historic elements of the pool. They, you know, the Morris Lapidus diving board. I mean, it's beautiful and it's well run, and they're good for our community. And to take away, even if it is just 2 hours of prime sun during the busiest, you know, months of the year, of December and January, I mean, I think that's wrong to do for the new project's benefit to save perhaps to save the shadow, the shade in your pool. And so I have big problems with that. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's fair. And we're talking about giving you guys a public gift to help you guys make more money. And I don't see it as a benefit to the community to be taking, you know, and the Shelbourne Hotel is part of the community, right? The nearby community, whether it's immediately adjacent or just across that small street. You know, I think it's important to, you know, not do things to the detriment of the neighbors who did do everything the right way. They put in all this money, and I don't think that's right. And so I commend you all for coming in and saving the day, but I just think that there's got to be a way to protect the people, the surrounding properties. I agree, it looks to me too far east, the current building, you know, so I'm not, you know, totally unopposed to the 200 feet. I just think there needs to be more coming back to, you know, we've seen this issue in the past, right? People buy these properties, these old, you know, antiquated buildings that are historic landmarks for us. Something happens, the financing falls through, the buildings sit in a really bad state for years, they crumble, and then a new developer comes in to swoop in, save the day, and they come to us and say, well, the only way we can save the day is if you give us this. And, you know, we've seen that all up Collins Avenue, and so there's a problem with that. And I'm fine with, you know, allowing, you know, welcoming developers to come save the day, and I'm even fine giving them things to encourage them to come save the day. But when it's going to be to the detriment of others in the surrounding area, I don't think it's necessarily right, unless the benefit to everybody around, you know, not to phrase it, to coin a term, overshadows the detriment.
Exceeds.
Well, whatever. So.
You wanted to use that one.
I wanted to throw in the overshadow. So anyways, these are my thoughts. I think it is a huge property, and so I think there's a way this can work. I just think it needs more work, to get done. But, so I don't think anybody, I mean, the good thing is for you guys that I don't think anybody's opposed to the extra 0.5. It just needs to be reworked a bit. I don't know. So I'm sort of in this place of, I'm in favor of the 0.5, which alone is a benefit, but, sort of a gift from the city, but at the same time, I don't think that it should, affect or impact, obviously the beach shadowing, but the neighborhood pool. I mean, I don't think the issue is with the putting a shadow on the structure of the Shelbourne. I mean, that's fine. It's just, I think it's where a majority of their food concessions sold and pool. I know they've got memberships. I mean, who's going to buy a membership to the pool if it's covered for the prime time of the day? And so, those are my thoughts. So I don't know exactly how because I hear what you're saying. You shouldn't really condition any of this on it, but I think I would move, I guess it would be a separate, proposed amendment. I would make a motion to, say that if it, I guess here's the proposed amendment is really broad, right? So I don't think anybody's, posing the certain height if it's properly placed.
So would it be a proposed amendment or a recommendation to?
It would have to be a recommendation. We can't
Correct,
propose
correct.
it.
I just want to be clear.
You can but just to be clear, you can recommend that the commission amend the ordinance. So that can be part of your
That's
recommendation.
what I'm gonna say.
Right.
So my, I guess, motion would be to separately recommend that they amend the ordinance to, the maximum height of the existing structures on the abutting oceanfront lot. But I'm also not totally opposed to it being higher if it's,
Again, but shouldn't that let HPB decide that?
HPB and
well, I think,
design review.
but then I have a,
They're gonna see the project.
I don't know what they're gonna do, and we have an obligation to, in terms of the planning, decide.
All right.
So should we
All
just
right, you know what?
include?
Hold on, all right. I think we all know what the issues are, so someone make a motion.
I would make a motion to approve this with a favorable
Hold
recommendation.
on, we're still, just procedurally, we're starting with the first LDR amendment, right? We have to do them individually?
I would do the comp plan first.
Okay, so we're gonna start with the comprehensive amendment, which is Planning Board 80816. Please make your motion.
I would make a motion to approve this with a favorable recommendation to go from the 175 to the 2 FAR.
I'll second.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
So you're opposed. That's just on the
yeah.
favorable, okay, all right.
Just to be clear, it's to 2.5.
2.5,
Yeah,
sorry,
so
correct.
it's what's
It's-
before
it's-
us, actually.
Yes, it's the
Yes.
extra 0.25.
All right, so it's.
4-1. Sorry, the
Point-
extra
point
0.5.
five,
The extra
point five.
0.5 going from
All right, are we doing a
1.75
count, or
to
we're
2.5.
doing-
2.5.
That's just on this motion, so that's a 5-1, okay?
Who was, no?
Scott.
Scott.
Thank you.
All right, now, let's go to the LDR amendment, and then we can discuss what recommendations we want to make.
So I would make a motion to approve the LDR amendment with a favorable recommendation.
Okay? Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Same.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Scott, okay, same 5-1. Okay, now, somebody wants to make a motion on a suggested request to the commission, go ahead.
Yes, I'll make a motion that, I guess if to recommend an amendment, that if anybody is going to take advantage of the 2.5 FAR or the 0.5 FAR increase, the height of any new structure cannot exceed the maximum height of I guess the next closest oceanfront lot.
Well, what would that be?
I would say, I mean,
That's-
175, we can just say 175.
Yeah, I wouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
I wouldn't do
it.
that.
I wouldn't do that.
You're saying 175, all right. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, I want to do a roll call on that one, please.
Okay, Mr. Marks?
No.
Mr. Frieden?
Yes.
Ms. Beatty?
No.
Mr. Needleman?
Yes.
Mr. Cement?
No.
Mr. Elias?
No, only because I want the HPB to decide that.
Yes.
Agreed.
All
I
right, so
agree.
that fails.
Yeah.
Guess we're gonna move on then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it possible to send a, like, in the referral to the HPV, and whenever they get it, to have the message from us delivered that we had an issue with the height of it, given the impact on the beach, on the neighboring properties, things like that?
That wasn't the consensus of the body.
I'm just asking if that's something that we could pass a like a note to, like, as part of the,
I think that given the planning board's role in planning and policymaking, I think that if you were going to make a recommendation, it should be, that it be part of the regulation itself.
But to you all, because I appreciate all your concerns, but obviously you're going to participate in the HPB hearing. And I just feel that that's where they should make that decision, and I hope you'll be as active there as you were here today. Thank you very much.
I understand. The HPV needs to step up.
All right, next is previously continued application file, PB 260838, One Ocean Drive, concession agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to give a brief introduction and then turn it over to Ozzie Dominguez, who is our Director of Asset Management, who's really been working on this particular agreement. So as noted in the report, it was in 2023 that the mayor and city commission adopted a resolution approving a concession agreement with the Boucher Brother for the Pier Park site. Since that time, there were disputes. The city was involved in a dispute, and there were the existing occupant of the site and the Boucher brothers were involved in a dispute. That has been, settlement agreement has been approved, which is really why this concession agreement is coming back to you. That settlement agreement included an initial 10-year term and extension terms. That period of time triggers planning board review. So any concession agreement or lease agreement that exceeds 10 years, or that is 10 years or more, does require the review of the planning board. So that's why it's here before you.
The settlement, if I read it correctly, so they're going to keep it under current management until August 27, is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, Deb.
No problem. Staff has reviewed the terms, and we are supportive of this agreement. Again, they would have a 10-year period with an extension of 5 years, and then an additional extension that would be possible of 3 years. They are committed to making a significant financial investment in the site, $50 million. And the plan has already been reviewed by the Design Review Board. The Design Review Board had comments, so it hasn't been approved yet, but it will be going back, I believe, this month to the Design Review Board. So with that, I can turn it over to the real experts in the room on the terms, but planning staff is supportive, and we're recommending that the planning board issue a favorable recommendation.
And Mr. Chair, before you turn it over, I just want to point out that nothing about the program of the uses has changed. The planning board, you may recall, held a hearing on the approval of the use, since this is GU property, and the planning board transmitted a favorable recommendation. Nothing about the program of the uses proposed has changed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just would like to also include, because there was some concern that SOFNA had in our meeting before last, or the last meeting, we had a attorney representing Boucher up just informing our community that there might be a settlement.
Might be what?
There might be a settlement.
Oh.
But he gave actually no, other than informing people that there could be a possible, and that this wouldn't, and basically all he said was this, there's a chance that this might not turn into a 4-year battle where it sits empty. And I have no ex parte with them, never met the lawyer before or after, did not discuss it. We did not vote, and nor did we issue to the city a resolution in support for or against the settlement. It's not in our lane, although I can also state that our community was happy that there could be a mutual agreed, because there were 3 parties and it was pretty complex, and that there's been zero, I never saw the concession agreement, never discussed it until it was in planning, so.
Thank you, Keith.
No conflict.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I can just say, my name is Aaron Tandy. I am the general counsel for Boucher Brothers.
that was a joke.
I was the person that Mr. Marks was mentioning. I was the attorney who went to SOFNA, just so the record is clear.
So wait, just so I'm clear, so Neeson is outside counsel, you're actually their general counsel in-house?
I'm general counsel in-house, and I've been asked to appear here today
God, I just
by
wanted-
Nick and Ozzy as a sort of subject matter expert. I've registered, but I'm a subject matter expert in case you have some questions about the concession agreement that Ozzy would feel more comfortable I answered about our intentions or the terms.
Good morning. Ozzy Dominguez, Division Director of Asset Management for the City of Miami Beach. Pleasure seeing everybody here this morning. I'd like to open it up and see if there's any questions on this before I hand it over to Aaron so that he can give you a quick review and summary of the amendment.
Yeah, I don't know, anybody have questions? Go ahead.
If there's no questions, I'm going to do what judges usually say. I'm going to just
Yeah,
be silent.
quiet. Yeah, I mean, unless.
Any comments?
I have no question.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Anyone here to speak on this? Anybody on Zoom? No. See, I knew that.
I'm proud of you.
Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with a favorable recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, 6-0, easiest job you ever had.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Debbie, thank you very much for the introduction.
Thank
And
you.
Nick, thank you.
guys. Okay, new applications, Planning Board File 260844, 1940 Park Avenue lease agreement.
Are these all looked at together?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think many of you know, this is the site of the Barclay Plaza. It's a contributing building located within the Collins Park neighborhood in the Museum Historic District. So this property has had a very long history. Since over 10 years ago, we started with RFQs for the redevelopment of this site. It was previously owned by the Miami Beach Housing, what was it, the CDC?
Community Development Corporation.
The Miami Beach
MBCDC.
CDC, they were involved in some difficulties, and the city actually acquired the property over 10 years ago. Since that time, we have issued, I believe, 3 different RFQs, RFPs, and none of those projects actually were able to move forward. So most recently, the city issued it was in 2022, an RFP. We had 1 proposer, and we have, that's the current project you see today. So the idea of the project is to construct a multifamily building. This multifamily building will have a small percentage of units that will be dedicated for elderly workforce, and a small percentage that will have up to 160 AMI rents. So the rest of the building will be market rent. There's a total of 105 units in the building. 7 will be the elderly workforce, and I believe 15 or 16 are proposed to be restricted to an AMI rent of 160 or less. They've also proposed a transient use restriction, so they're agreeing to a covenant that would in perpetuity prohibit any type of short-term rentals or transient use. They've also agreed, given the poor structural condition of the property, that if total demolition is required, which, you know, from my experience, my perspective, it may be that they will reconstruct the historic facades, both on Park Avenue and Washington Avenue. So we are generally supportive. They have agreed to a $2 million upfront rent payment, and then they've also agreed not to request any city subsidies for the project. The initial term is for 51 years plus two 24-year extensions. So this does require, you know, a review and a recommendation by the planning board, and ultimately it would require approval by the mayor and city commission. But I see Stephen Anthony, our Director of Economic Development, is here. And I believe, Stephen, are you going to show a presentation?
That presentation will be with the council for the development.
Okay, great. But with that, if you have any questions for staff, we're here and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
Well, Director Tackett, Stephen Anthony, again, Stephen Anthony, Economic Development Director for the City of Miami Beach. It's a pleasure to meet the board. I actually don't have any additional comments. Director Tackett did a fantastic job of going over the general terms of the ground lease. So again, as administration and staff, we are certainly approval of the terms of the ground lease. Believe this was a great opportunity to activate this parcel and really get it back into use for the community.
Thank you. Alfredo?
Good afternoon. Still morning. Good morning. Alfredo Gonzalez on behalf of 1940 Barclay Partners LLC. And I think that Director Tackett and Director, I have really highlighted that we've been working together. The commission approved the term sheets last year, and we're very close to having a final lease ready to go to the commission, highlighted by all the points on the term sheet. So I'll have more of a presentation when we talk about the LDR amendments that we're seeking that would go in line with the ultimate lease that's going to be approved, would be approved by the commission. So happy to answer any particular questions.
Okay. Ray, are you speaking, or this letter speaks for you? Are you commenting on this item? Yes. Okay, come on up.
I just sent it out.
Mr. Chair, since this project will be coming before the HPB,
Yeah, I'm just simply saying that the Collins Park Neighborhood Association is thrilled to finally have this property be developed. That's
What
all.
were you going to say, Nick? What were you going to say? What were you going to say? Because it's coming for HPB what?
So what's before the planning board today is the review pursuant to the city charter of the proposed lease agreement and the text amendments to the comprehensive plan and LDRs. I was just going to advise Mr. Breslin that since the application will be coming before him as a member of the HPB.
Oh.
Can I ask a
Got it.
curiosity
Be careful.
Legal, actually. Aren't city leases over 10 years required to have a public vote?
Yes, so that's current. So the charter was amended in November of 2024 to require a referendum prior to the sale or lease of 10 years or longer of any city property.
Any city.
This lease was awarded prior to the charter amendment. So
Okay.
the charter
I just
amendment
thought I was losing my mind. Okay.
has a carve out for any leases that were awarded prior.
Thank you.
But good question.
Anybody else in chambers speak on this? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, any other questions? I want to move it.
Question.
Oh,
So
You feel?
it seems like demolition is most probably going to be required. So, sorry?
Yeah.
In all likelihood.
Yeah.
So when it's rebuilt, they rebuild with the same facade. Do they get any additional height? Do they get anything else that is accompanied with this, or has to be built?
We're going to talk about that in the next application, but they are not requesting any additional height, and they're not requesting any additional FAR. They are requesting some other LDR amendments, but not height and not
So
FAR.
it would, for the most part, be rebuilt to pretty similar spec.
I don't know if they've finalized the design yet, but they are looking to maximize the FAR and the allowable. I think they're actually a little bit lower than the allowable height, but I think that will be part of the next presentation. They probably have some visuals for the board to show what the initial project is
I guess my only
massed out
question would
as.
be is, the lease payments that were contemplated, is that based on what they're going to rebuild or what's currently there?
That's based on their current plan. They haven't confirmed 100% because they haven't been able to get a structural engineer to really evaluate the existing structural systems of the building. But they're anticipating demolishing and reconstructing, which I think is a good anticipation to have because that's likely, from my experience, to be required. So the numbers are based on that assumption.
Meaning it's based on the rebuilding assumption?
Yes.
So that's how the rent payments were structured, based on what they're going to rebuild?
Correct. Now, they're proposing currently for just rebuilding the facades, and then the new addition to this site would be kind of in the middle of that. So it wouldn't be a complete reconstruction of the existing historic building. It would be some reconstruction of the exterior walls and then a new project kind of inserted in the middle
Got
of
it.
that.
So does rent go up if they build more, I guess is my question.
So it is just the single payment. So it's the single upfront $2 million payment.
Right. So would they have to pay an additional amount in the event that they ultimately end up building more?
So right now, as is, that's the structure that's been set forward as the current plan has been set.
So no.
Yeah, the FAR allowed for the site is 2.37, so that's what the current plans are. If they were to come back and say, we want more FAR, then I think this would all be open to renegotiation.
I could clarify on behalf of not the applicant, but all the negotiations have been taking place on the anticipation of most likely having to demolish the building and do a replication and restore elements. This building has been set for demolition by an emergency demolition that's been stayed over the years. We just recently got access to the site. We've been working with the city to get access. Surveys are about to be done, so the architect who's here with me today will be able to kind of start having a real plan. But we anticipate, the number of units we're anticipating, and when I get into the LDR discussion, that's going hand in hand. So it's not that we're negotiating a lease, and then after the lease is negotiated, then we're going to come back and say, oh, we want more units. No, we're upfront that we want need about 105 units, and the breakup between the different uses that the city and we're discussing, that's all intended to be approved together at a commission meeting. So ultimately, best case scenario, we'll have the LDR and the comp plan amendment up for a vote and the final approval of the lease altogether. So the intent is for it to all be at the same time, and it's clear, we're looking for about 105 units to be built. So it's, the next presentation won't be something that's not part of the discussions of the lease.
Debbie, one question on that. And you mentioned I guess a covenant for no transient uses. Includes hotel use and I assume, and there's no chance that they would want to come back and ask for that, or?
So the current agreement requires no transient use, including no hotel units. If they were to want to amend that to include any type of short-term rentals, that would have to be, brought back before this board as well as the city commission. And it's, the city's commission's direction for this project was to increase our residential housing stock, long-term residential.
All right, someone want to move it?
I'll move it.
Favorably?
Favorably,
Okay.
yes.
All right, can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor of this one? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, 6-0, thank you. All right, so I'm assuming, Alfredo, you're staying for this. Deborah, you're going to present on the.
Sure.
Yes, okay,
So
we're-
the next application is the LDR amendment plus the companion comprehensive plan amendment. So that's Planning Board filed 260833 and 260834. The comprehensive plan amendment is being requested because this particular application, number one, is proposing to increase density. The current zoning allows for 100 dwelling units per acre, and the applicant is requesting to increase that to up to 150 units per acre, plus a 30 dwelling unit per acre bonus if the project meets certain restrictions in terms of a percentage of affordable or attainable housing. They are requesting a reduction in the allowable unit size. Currently, allowable unit size for affordable or workforce housing is 400 square feet. Market rate housing, the current minimum is 550 square feet. They're requesting an amendment to allow 400 square feet regardless of the whether the unit is income restricted or not. They're asking to reduce the setbacks for their new construction. They're asking to eliminate the parking requirement, the vehicular parking requirement. They are still proposing to maintain the required bicycle parking. Additionally, they are proposing micromobility infrastructure within the site. They are asking for an amendment to allow the Historic Preservation Board to waive the loading requirements. Currently, the Historic Preservation Board does have some ability to waive loading with an existing contributing building on the site. So they're just asking to, if they have to reconstruct the property, to allow the board to also waive the loading zones. They're asking for some exemptions from the resiliency and adaptation standards. They're asking for a reduction of the minimum landscape standards. They have a yard encroachment with the driveway, so even though they're not providing parking for the units on the site, they are providing some parking for loading and drop off and pick up. So I think there's maybe 4 parking spaces that they are proposing, which would need either a variance or a code amendment. So they're asking for an amendment that would allow driveways to encroach into that required yard. Finally, they are asking for a zoning map designation change and also a future land use map change. When a property is purchased by a government, it automatically gets rezoned to a GU. However, the future land use map does not become automatically changed. So the applicant is just clarifying that this will be a GU zone site, which it is automatically since the city has owned it. But the future land use map as part of the comprehensive plan amendment is also being requested to change from currently RM2 to public facilities. And staff is very supportive of that, that request. And we're hopeful that some of these, zoning amendments will make the project feasible, because we really do need to get this particular property back to active use. It's been a real concern, for preservationists, right? We, as, someone who was on the preservation board as staff for a long time, it's always been a concern, this building in its current condition, but also it's become a real nuisance to people who live in the neighborhood. We've had significant issues with break-ins. There's been a lot of police activity on this site, and I know, certain neighbors have reached out to me directly, really encouraging the city to try and move forward with a viable project. So with that, I can turn it over to the applicant, but I'm also here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Bruno?
Good morning. Again, Alfredo Gonzalez on behalf of 1940 Barclay Partners LLC. I'm here today with my associate David Butter, also the architect on the project from Brooks Scarpetta and Huber. Jeff Huber is here as well. And these LDR amendments help bring this site into conformity. We've worked with staff on them. I'm going to go through a quick presentation to get you bearings on what we're asking for. If we could put the presentation up, please. So, oh good, this worked. So just to orient, everyone understands, just in case, the Barclay is located just off, across east of the convention center and park. It's almost at the dime. It's an odd-shaped lot. So, and you'll see from the images of the building that's been this way since, I guess, for the last almost 12 years. So it was boarded, the city acquired it, there were fires and arson. So this building will likely have to come out, but there are part of the negotiations to restore and save whatever elements we could save off the building to be reused. And the comp plan amendments is going to be allow for residential uses, because technically, as a government site, you can't have residential uses. So this is going to be a mixed-use project, as you heard before. And so on the comp plan, we'd like it to be residential, add residential uses, and also the residential density. Because it is a government site, it has an FAR greater than 2.37. That's the FAR that the site has. Typically in the RM2, it's 2 or less. So it creates a disparity that now that this will clean up. So it'll allow the density to actually be able to use it. And we do get bonuses for the affordable housing earnings, no more than 160 AMI. There's also an elderly component, which we don't have to make a text amendment, that's part of this project as well. So in the land development amendment, obviously we also are doing the residential density. We're requesting the minimum unit size to be 400 square feet to allow for, more. We're not trying to do high-end luxury units. There's going to be this workforce market rate units that are more for sort of providing a need that in the area, we've all, at this board, at commission, and many boards, there's a discussion of trying to find affordable housing, even at full market rate. So we're also setback encroachments because we're trying to keep, you'll see that this is the site, and then trying to keep the format of how the Barclay used to be. And keeping the facades in the historic element, we're going to need relief from some of the setbacks. And kind of show you on the higher floors is just a small portion. And we included that in our request. So this project, by amending the LDRs, it's clear that we go in to the HPB for that review. You'll have, obviously, we can't include the parking without, and also replicate the facades, because there'd be no way other than this driveway on the northern portion to enter or exit the property. We're asking for the frontage standards and the landscaping to get some relief because of the site. Again, ultimately, all this will be approved by the Historic Preservation Board. And just so, and that's really at this point what we have, because we don't have development drawings at this point. We just recently got access, worked out with the city. We've been working with this, we're partners with the city, and we have access, and our first step is getting surveys, so I can provide the survey to our illustrious architect, and then have design plans starting to be prepared. But I just wanted to point out that, and I know it was pointed out previously, but that we're looking at have about 105 units. Right now, there's about 16 units would be restricted residential. Another 7 will be about elderly housing. And that'll bring the total set-asides in the building to over 22% of the overall building. Now, I know the staff recommendation, we call for 10%, being at a minimum of 10% to be this restricted residential. Staff is calling for amendment to be 15. The reason we're asking for it to stay 10% is to allow the flexibility with the city. Ultimately, we have to do whatever our lease requires us. So it's not that we could do 10% and the city doesn't want us to do 10%. It's dictated in the lease terms. Now, I wanted to leave that flexibility there, so if as it goes along the way, gets to the city commission, if there were some changes in the percentages of the units, more elderly housing mix, the city would have that flexibility. So that's the only reason we'd like to leave it at 10% versus 10% today, at 10% versus moving to 15, even though I understand that currently our term sheet says 15%, but I wanted to leave that flexibility and not have to trigger a new LDR amendment down the road if there was a change by the commission. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you comment on that, Debbie? Just to
Sure,
clarify?
yeah, I mean, the lease agreement it does require 15%. So to be consistent with that, we are recommending that the text amendment also have the 15%.
Right, so I understand what's the argument about how it gives you more flexibility.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah, well, I think what the attorney is saying is that if we wanted to reduce the units that are restricted to 160 AMI and increase the number of actual affordable, by the legal definition of affordable units, then that might throw off the, the percentage of the regular kind of income restricted versus the actual affordable. From staff's perspective, we want as much attainable housing and affordable housing as possible. So, they could increase the number of elderly housing and retain the number of the 15% number. So from our perspective, we want as many attainable units in the building as possible. And of course, we support the elderly affordable housing units. So these are just minimums. If they want to increase the number, that wouldn't require any type of amendment. So our recommendation is going to remain a minimum of the 15%.
Okay. Anybody else in chambers speak on this? Anybody on Zoom?
Can I clarify one thing?
Sure.
I'm
We're
sorry.
closing the public hearing. Go ahead.
And I agree with what Debbie said, but the issue is that the elderly housing that the city is also wanting to see in the project is part of the overall scope. There's no text amendment or requirements to have any percentage of elderly housing. So if the city ultimately, again, the city decides to change it up and maybe have more elderly, they have the right. I wanted to give them the flexibility at 10%, so they say, fine. If the overall, there's an overall cap of how much affordable elderly you can put into a project and still make it a viable project in any stance. Mind you, it's been vacant for so long. So at the end of the day, even if it's 10% or 15, we can't dictate that change. We're entering the lease agreement with the city. The city could make those changes themselves and suggest it, and we're not counting. Like there's 22% right now on this project being proposed that's going to either elderly or restricted residential. So it's helping those in need over 22%. That mix
You
between
said how many units are in here, are proposed?
105 units.
105, okay.
105 units are proposed, and 22% of those are earmarked for either elderly
Right.
and to satisfy the
7 and
15%.
Can you explain, I don't understand, what benefits, okay, so they're elderly, they're a certain age, are you giving, is there government money going to help subsidize it? Are you lowering the rent? Explain how that
Sure.
affects their rent.
Through the housing.
I'm 20 and I'm 65, what's the difference?
So it's a voucher program through the city and the housing authority. So they wanted to have earmarked a certain number of units that they could use through their program. So they'll be built, there's a requirement that they're all mixed throughout the building, so.
Rents will be the same.
Those are be set by the housing authority, maybe housing authority
Okay.
in the city's housing program for elderly.
Yeah.
So those units would,
Don't worry.
those units are basically, the cost will be set by the city and the vouchers.
Just a quick clarification. So the senior units wouldn't go above 80% of AMI.
Okay.
So it's 80%.
I got that. Okay, thank you. That's good. Motion? And these are all 6-month or more?
I think it's
No
12 months.
short-term.
1 year.
For workforce or anyone, right?
They're 1 year rentals.
1-year rentals. Beautiful.
I'd make a motion to approve, but keeping the 15% in there.
Okay, are we on the
Where are we?
comprehensive plan amendment or the LDR? Well, which one has the 15%?
The LDR.
LDR, which is the
All
first
right.
one.
Okay, move to send that favorably with 15% left. Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. I guess we need to wait for Melissa, right? Oh, wait, we had 5? Oh, I guess it passes,
Yeah, 5.
right? Okay.
Pass.
All right, and then next is the comprehensive plan amendment?
I'll make a motion to approve PB 26-0834.
I'll second.
Second?
Yeah.
Keith?
Yes.
Okay, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you guys.
Have a good day.
All right, so before we get to discussion items, I just want to point out that, Nick, I just sent Nick the BTR for that valet company,
Yes.
and it does not appear, despite the testimony that we heard from the code, that that location, the Becerra location, is identified as one of the properties for which they are approved.
I sent it as an email to you guys too. 'cause
Okay,
I
so
got it.
I just want to point
The
that
same.
out, because
They are not
I
there.
drilled down on that specifically, and they kept telling me,
Under
yes,
oath.
they're approved, they're approved, they're approved, and it doesn't appear that was the case, so I guess staff can do with that as they may, but it kind of concerns me that.
If it's true,
Well, it's
I
con-
think we should come back in September.
Well, it's concerning that they both testified that
Yeah.
the BTR was issued, that's a fact.
Yeah.
But
They're not listed.
that location is not approved, it doesn't appear, from what I'm looking at. I may be wrong, but,
We'll have to review internally
Yeah.
and see if there's any other record evidencing that
yeah,
the,
I just want to
Well,
point
that the
that.
valley operator. 'cause
But
it-
if it's in fact, they don't have a BTR, can we put something in that says that this isn't just a clerical error, that then we can come back in September and review with them? Because how do we know if this isn't cleared up in September when we come back? I mean,
the
this
board
whole
vo-
premise, the whole premise of, which I agreed with,
Hold on, what
of
is-
January had to do with the fact that they were covered and that we would not see reoccurrence of the valet issue.
So the board voted to continue today's hearing to the January meeting unless a new violation is issued
So
before
if-
then.
Well, but hold on, that was
Okay,
under
so
the.
there's gonna be new violations.
Hold on, that was under the assumption that what they told us was correct.
Yeah.
I
it
understand
was
that.
true. Under
You
oath.
could conceivably, you could move to reconsider your vote.
Well, I want you
and-
to confirm that what I'm looking at is accurate.
Yeah.
But from what I'm looking at, they are not approved.
I mean,
And
I
that was
can't,
the whole discussion.
yeah, I can't tell you that decisively without doing the research.
Okay. So-
But here's the thing, you guys are gonna look at it, if it's not proper, they're gonna get another violation.
and
Right.
bring them back.
And we're gonna be back in September, so.
Right. Yeah.
So
And-
let's-
and we could also-
and we probably shouldn't be talking about here when they're not here as part of, since we ended that meeting, I'm just saying it.
Well, it's
let's
not
just
about
let it-
discussing it, it's a fact. I
It's a
just
fact.
saw
That's
the
what I'm saying,
BTR.
let's just go through
It's
that
a
process.
city PTR.
Right.
Even if there is no violation, if after doing the research, we could maybe bring this back as a progress report in September if
okay.
Well,
necessary.
yeah, I mean, it's up to you all,
But-
but.
it's up to you.
But let us
it
look
looks like
into
what was represented to us was inaccurate. That's
let
all
us
I'm
look
saying.
into that. Yeah.
And that
We
happened
need
be
to know
the
if that's
and that was the
clerical error
germane
or-
issue of the hearing, so.
And sorry, just one
Okay.
point. If it does prove to be false, can you bring it back as a modification/revocation instead of the
Yes.
progress report? Or it'd have to go progress report first and then?
No, I mean, the board, unless a violation is issued. If a violation is issued between now and then we could schedule the modification revocation hearing for September.
If it's true, we're gonna get a violation next week or this week.
If the code goes
Yeah.
out and does it.
Yeah, code better go.
I just want you to be aware of it, okay? And if it's true that they're not approved, then you need to let code know that, because he stood there, and I'm sure it wasn't on purpose, but he confirmed, and I specifically said, I understand the BTR is issued, is this location approved? Yes. And it looks like that may not be true, and he may not have been aware of it.
Let us look into it in case there's some other record that we
Okay,
don't have.
that's all
right
I'm
now.
asking is
Yeah.
for you to look into it. All right, discussion item, single-family residential zoning regulations. Can't remember who requested that be remember who asked for that discussion item? It's usually
Could have been
Sheila,
me.
it's usually you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was me.
So we have there's a
Yes.
document.
I we included in your package a commission memorandum because this is a discussion that we've had already at the Land Use Committee. Several commissioners over the years have, pointed out that our single-family development regulations are perhaps, the most complex of all of our different zoning districts in the city. And the, planning staff has often, discussed the issues with permitting of single-family homes in terms of the amount of time it takes staff to review a building permit for a single-family home, for example, because the regulations are extraordinarily complex and they've been layered over time. And so we support, another look at these regulations in order to simplify, streamline, really what is permit review. So I thought it would be helpful to provide you with the current discussion pending City Commission, in which we have kind of two options. We have option one, which would really be a dramatic change, basically only having, allowable setback or minimum setbacks and maximum heights, but the volume of the home, could really be anything as long as it's contained within that kind of envelope that we provide. That would be kind of the most extreme and the simplest form that we could, adopt. We also have option two, which is more surgical in terms of going through our regulations, seeing which ones are really causing the issues in terms of our difficulty in reviewing and, amending that to simplify. We are supportive of option two because we do believe that a lot of our regulations are actually resulting in, significantly more compatible homes. If you have a good architect, the good architect is going to use these types of, the setbacks and the step backs innately because they are going to be looking to break down the massing. But if you have a bad architect, they may just come in with a box without any movement or any relief for adjacent neighbors. So we think there's likely a middle ground between our current regulations, just a volumetric regulation in order to make the process simpler for property owners, but also ensure that there's some level of compatibility within existing single-family homes, neighborhoods, yeah.
So this is going to go in front of the commission or the land
It's
use commission?
currently, land use has generally discussed this already. It's currently pending a discussion item at City Commission. It was actually on the June agenda.
Got it.
So, what we're hopeful that it will come up at the July meeting.
So
And they would request that the LDR and the plan code amendment come to us?
Yes, potentially, they
All right,
could,
so
they
this
could
is more
refer.
so this is informative for us to know what may be coming.
Correct.
Okay.
So, my preference would be option one, not that we're being asked for it, but is there any way to include in whatever the city commission is going to vote on, ways to incentivize, I guess, owners or developers to rehab or redo existing properties? Because at least what I'm finding is that there are, many people being priced out of Miami Beach because people are selling off their homes, their lot, whatever it is. People come in, they build a big box, which I'm not saying I'm against, but that creates a whole new playing field. So you can't really get someone moving into Miami Beach for $2 million or even $3 million. I mean, we're talking about homes that are going for 5, 6, 7, 8 million, dry lots, 5,000 square foot house for just a lot of money. So is there any way to include in here some type of incentive for rehab and redo? I don't know if that's larger, lot coverage ratio. I don't know, maybe a larger kind of maximum unit size, things like that. So 50%, maybe it's 55 or 60% if you're redoing your home.
So
with
we
an extension.
currently, that is part of this. We currently do have incentives for architecturally significant homes that were built prior to 1966. That requires a property owner to go through an architectural significance evaluation by staff. That's not a difficult process, but that's just one more step, right? That's another delay in the time frame. So what this would also do is not require that additional step. So basically, if you have a home built prior to 1966 you would automatically be eligible for those incentives,
And what is that
including
then?
the lot coverage, the unit size, reduced setbacks in certain instances,
And that
even
would go
for
up to what?
additions.
So it goes from 50% to what?
50% to 60%, and the lot coverage, Jake, is 40%.
So could that be something, let's say that's included for homes that are not, let's say that are pre-1990, or, whatever that is? Meaning, can we,
We don't,
Make
I mean, we could certainly look at that. We don't really see, we see most of the housing stock in Miami Beach is, I think half of it is pre-1950.
yeah, I'm just
And
trying.
then we have a good chunk from 1950 to 1966. I think a lot of the 80s and 90s homes have been demolished, but we could certainly look at
I'm just trying
increasing
to
that
figure
for
out
anyone.
how do we kind of allow for more affordable housing on Miami Beach where people can stay, it gives them an option of they're moving into a redone home instead of a newly, rebuilt home, which obviously increases the cost. That's what I think we should all just be trying to figure out.
Yeah, Claire, you're trying to make sure that some of these houses, lots that are bought with like bungalow or smaller house sizes are kept that way, and that there's incentive from the city that there are offers so that the people are not necessarily knocking it down.
Sure, because let's say I
Right.
want to sell, not me, someone wants to sell a house that right now is 4,000, it's a 4,000 square foot house.
Right.
Instead of knocking it down, rebuilding, right, they can get up to, let's say, 5,500 that another house couldn't get, but they have to keep it within the same, let's call it footprint, whatever that is, brings down the cost, and again, I think it introduces a new price point, where maybe it's not the million or 2 million, maybe it's 3 million, but
it's-
it's not the 7 million.
Right, it's important, because most of the time, they look at it and they look at the money they have to put in to fix it up, and it's
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
to
The money, the
to demolish
complexity,
it
and
and
all
add
these
square
things.
footage is much more profitable than just
Correct.
doing the work, so.
So maybe they make up that money by being able to build a larger home, but it's not the newly rebuilt home. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if that's something we could
Some
consider.
incentives that the city can include.
Yeah, we can certainly include more
Yeah.
incentives for the retention of homes. We can expand that, and make it easier for people to avail themselves of these incentives.
Yeah, that's all I'm hoping for.
I think that's important.
Okay.
Anything else on this one?
Nope.
Okay, the next is swale maintenance and use of swales in single-family neighborhoods.
That was definitely mine.
Yeah.
I did provide you with the code sections. I have reached out to Rodney Knowles, Assistant Public Works Director. And, basically, just to summarize what's in the existing city code, is that swale maintenance in single-family neighborhoods is the responsibility of the property owner, right? The city does not actively maintain the swales in front of an adjacent private property. So that is currently the requirement of the property owner. The trees, I know there was a question about planting trees and shrubbery in the swales. That is, property owners are eligible to do that through the coordination with the city's urban forestry department. So the urban forestry department will allow for the introduction of trees. But that, again, any new trees or new shrubbery is going to default to the responsibility of the adjacent property owner to maintain that. Public Works also looks at, sightline triangles and things like that to make sure that there are no safety issues with any landscape that's added. As far as parking is concerned, I received a response that they do not regulate parking on the swales. All they would regulate is the ability to introduce paving, for example. That would not be permitted. So if someone wanted to pave the area in order to provide parking in the swale, the city would not permit that. But as far as parking on the grass, the only enforcement the city would have would be if by, parking there that somehow caused damage to the swale or the landscape, then it would be the owner's responsibility to repair all of that. Sometimes if you have, large work trucks and things, they do kind of rip up some of the landscaping, so that would need to be corrected by the property owner.
So I think what we were trying to solve for last meeting was the people that are obstructing the use of their swale. And by doing so, they're introducing parking on the street, which is restricting vehicular access, kind of down the street. So what can we do to ensure that that doesn't happen, whereby even if the maintenance is the responsibility of the property owner, fine, but they should not have the ability to restrict access to the swale, specifically parking or whatever that is. Because a lot of times what people do is they put those big rocks, they put the signs, no parking on grass, and then they have guests over, and then in front of their house, they're just parking on the street.
Right, and I would like to add to that, you
And
talk about the city allows some shrubs or trees to be planted. I'm under the impression, based on what's in the neighborhood and new construction, that the city is requiring at this point that there trees be planted on the swells of these new construction to increase, I think it was one of Minor's initiative, to increase shading. And so it's not even, right now, it's not an option to not. And so we're back to his point, is we're ending up with swells that are no longer being used or can be used to be parking, and so we end up with all these cars on the street instead of the swells like it traditionally used to be. So there was an initiative from the city of increasing trees being planted on swells that has become an issue in our neighborhoods.
Okay, and that's accurate. So for new construction projects, we do require shade trees. That is a much larger city initiative to increase our shade canopy. That wouldn't be necessarily required for an existing home that was going through a renovation. But that's something that we can, the planning board could certainly make a recommendation that we modify that policy. Another issue is if people are parking on the street and blocking travel lanes, that's not allowed either. So that would be an enforcement issue that I think we could also look into.
Here's an example, right? So here's a residential street that a neighbor sent to me. It's my street, they sent me the picture. You have a house here with big boulders blocking use of their swale. Then they have someone in front of their house who's parking on the street. Then across the street, you have someone who's restricting parking on the swale, so there's literally nowhere to drive. And they call enforcement, they call code. They'll come out, they give them a warning, please move your car, but that's not fixing the underlying issue, where there shouldn't be restricted access to the swale and people should be able to park there, which would open up the vehicular access. So I guess what could we do as a planning board to try and introduce, I don't know if it's, some type of code where you cannot restrict access to the swale.
So are those people allowed to put private rocks on the city property?
That's subject to Public Works review. I don't know. I can't speak to a specific property, whether or not that particular property owner
Yeah,
obtained
North Bay Road's the same, there's all
approval.
these flags, don't park
No,
here.
it's the same thing.
Right.
So,
We have that
so
for
is that something that we could work towards introducing language to prevent that type of
Right,
obstruction?
but then do you want people parking on front of people's lawns?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's important. in
It's
these
better that they
streets.
park
Right,
on their
on the
lawn
street.
than in the street.
So
Well, yeah,
at this
that-
point, they're
we-
option. And if you don't
By the way,
want people.
the option is not that they're not parking, they are parking.
Right.
Right, and they have their staff doing it because their driveways
Correct.
only allow for one or two cars. At the moment, they have staff every day. You have the whole, neighborhood is struggling with what he's showing. We have the same thing in the Venetian. And then we call enforcement sometimes when it's an issue. Everyone gets ticketed and then everyone's up and.
And they're literally parking on the street?
Right, they're parking on the street because
Just like
there's
this.
not enough swell space because
Right, no,
everyone's
I see
blocking
that.
their
Well,
swells.
you can't tell if that's driving or parked,
I mean, the lights are off, that's definitely a parked car.
And here's the reality of it, like, the swells do get beaten, like, I don't block off my swells in all the areas where we have the property, and they're beaten to shit, and it's just something you gotta accept, like, you're gonna have
Well, that's
cars
the
parked there.
question, so you,
But
because
this
residents are
is.
gonna go crazy about that.
Right, but that's part of, okay, so,
Right.
but the other idea is that they
No, but what I would
have
also
cars-
say
Are
is-
swales supposed to be parked on? I mean, I don't,
They're not authorized parking spaces, but it's not something that the city actively regulates.
right.
And the city unfortunately also, I guess with their, the code restricting the amount of cars that go in a driveway, which we've addressed, I think, in a previous meeting, it's also just gotten to the point where you can only fit 2 cars as it is in your front driveway area, which hopefully is gonna get better. But, I mean, is there anything that we could, introduce or put as a future item to include in the code that, again, restricts obstructing the swale?
So that wouldn't be part of the land development regulation. So that would be in our public property section of the city code. And you could certainly make a recommendation to the mayor and commission that they limit any obstructions in the swales to facilitate, parking of temporary
Nick, you're making funny
vehicles.
faces.
Well, I just want to caution the board too, because that, it would be very hard to distinguish between who should be parking there and who shouldn't be. It could really lead to a free-for-all.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue.
It already is like that.
Yeah,
We
correct.
can't control
They're
it
still
anyway.
parking, they're just parking on the street.
I think there'd be some pushback, people who want to keep their swales nice, but I also think that it solves a lot of the problems that we're always dealing anyways with. So it's, at least you're solving one of the two problems, because
Yeah.
the amount, there's not a single week on our chat in the Venetian Islands that we're not dealing with people complaining about all these cars parking on the streets. And we can't do much about it because our streets are narrow, which is typical of a lot of these streets where you can't apply for actual residential parking because the streets are not made wide enough to actually have legal parking on the streets. So,
Imagine an ambulance wants to get through,
we
impossibility.
deal with that all the time.
When you do
Well,
a
again,
code-
if you're blocking a travel lane, that is a violation.
Right.
That's
But
happening.
it's, so
Right.
let me ask you,
I know.
when you do a code amendment, who gets notice of that?
Just a regular amendment to
Right,
the,
if
to the
we-
city
If there
code.
was an amendment to prohibit any block of,
That would
I'm just
be,
saying, because you're gonna have neighbor, like I
Yeah.
live right in the North Bay Road neighborhood, they will go wild on that. But I want to make sure they're aware of it.
that would only require a newspaper notice, which we now do online.
And nobody reads.
And notice on our website. Now, you could, if you were going to recommend something like this, you could recommend that additional notice be provided to, to either property owners within specific areas, if this is going to be focused on certain areas, or to the neighborhood associations. But, the neighborhood associations may not reach
Right, but
everybody.
it'd be, it was citywide, so even if it wasn't a problem on a particular road, it would be citywide. Right?
Well, it sounds like what you're really talking about are single-family districts.
Right.
Right, but there's a lot of them where it's really not a problem, and others where
Yeah.
it is.
Right.
And I'm just telling you, I know neighbors that are gonna go ballistic because they take great pains to put things on their swale, so people aren't
But it's.
Well, and to
ruining the
ma-
grass and
Right.
parking in front of them.
And to maintain
The-
them.
It
the
sounds
only-
like it's illegal
to maintain
anyway.
The only other
That's
thing
what's
that I would
weird.
say is that if it wouldn't be a change to the code restricting, obstructing your swale, then maybe it kind of switches from there being a violation to the driver of the car to now it's the property owner, someone in front of them. And I mean, that's even worse. That's impossible for them to manage, but the status quo doesn't work.
Well,
No,
what's
the-
weird is that if it's already illegal to park on the swale, right?
It's not
It's
illegal.
not illegal.
Oh, it's not?
No,
Oh,
on
I
the
thought you
street
said
it
is.
is.
Well, they're not parking spaces, right? So technically, it's not something that we encourage.
You don't encourage it,
Oh,
but you
but
guys
it's not
don't enforce
prohibited.
it.
Like, can they get tickets for parking on this? Like,
I don't think so. I think
My
the only.
my
maybe
understanding as
enforcement
of
would-
last week, because I just dealt with the city with that in our neighborhood, is that unless, a little bit to what you're saying, technically, unless there is a cause that it's blocking, it's creating, it's part of the sidewalk, or it's creating some obstruction outside of the swell, or, that a specific resident, makes a complaint of, that lives on that property, that somehow, they won't come and enforce ever. And so, so at the very,
but that's my question. Is there something to enforce?
If they're blocking a travel lane, yes.
Okay, but just someone parked up on the grass.
It's
of
not
a
something
city
we
swale.
regulate. It's not something we're gonna regulate. Now, if part of their vehicle is in the travel lane, then we would. So, you see that too. Sometimes they're half on, half off, the swale area,
and just
so.
as a visual, I understand like some of the pushback from some people, but just as a visual, it is much nicer to see everyone parked on the same, all on the swells, and have some on the swells, some on the street, and you
Yeah.
have the
Well,
zigzags.
parking on the
So
street's
It's just
completely
it's kind of a mind frame we have to
I
change
agree.
about that, and even if it means that we have to, as a second step, maybe allow different materials that could be used there, just so it's not a bunch of grass that's torn up. I mean, there's a lot of good common sense too. If you're parking on it when it's after it rained, obviously you just tear everything up. But, there is 6 months of the year where that's not an issue. But I think that, it's a real problem in a lot of our neighborhoods. We're going to upset a few people to push it maybe in that direction, but in overall, it's one of those things that will become a new normal that then it works better for these neighborhoods, and it's a safety thing too.
Right, but I think if you're gonna prohibit people from blocking their soil with rocks or whatever, there should also be some rule that you can't just randomly park on them. Like unless,
So maybe it's-
maybe it's a service vehicle.
Well, because it's technically that property is not owned by the property owner, it's city property. So you
understand that,
can't,
but you
you
don't
can't
want
say it's
just-
just my people. It
No,
can-
but you don't want just random residents being able to park on someone's soil, right?
Well, we have that already.
Oh,
That-
yeah.
that
I mean,
happens
you have,
already.
let's say you live in this house, you could have someone from down the block who's having a party and someone
it
from
could
there is
happen.
parking in your swale. But I think that just happens in the normal course
Right,
of
most of the time it's people's own
neighborly
staff.
life.
Right, and in most neighborhoods, it's kind of understood, you're gonna try to use the space in front of your.
Correct.
It does happen, and usually there's little discussions between neighbors, your
Well,
house.
let me ask you this, why does the city, if the city owns the swales, why did they allow private residents to, put like, they're on North Bay, because I jog there and everything, that's the only example I can, people put flags on them, there's rocks on them, why is that allowed?
Yeah, I don't know if it is. I just don't know if we're issuing citations for that. But if you are going to put something in the swale, you should be coming into the city and discussing that with Public Works and Green Space. I think what might be helpful if we, after the end of this discussion, if we continue this to the September meeting so that I can have someone from Public Works here and maybe even someone from Code, because if the issue is occurring in certain neighborhoods and not citywide throughout the single-family districts, then maybe there is something in terms of enforcement that the city could step up. If it's limited to, if the real problem is limited to just a
All right,
few
why don't we do
neighborhoods.
But at a very minimum, I would like us to push forward the fact that these requirements of new trees for shading on all these new properties be reviewed, because right now that's causing a real problem.
And I would suggest that that also be continued. I think that requirement is in the LDRs. But the Miami-Dade County landscape ordinance sets minimum standards that we have to follow. We can either follow them or be stricter, but we cannot be less restrictive.
So this is the county, because I was under the impression.
It's
this was-
both.
Okay.
So the county sets the minimum standards for all incorporated and unincorporated areas of Miami-Dade. And then in some areas, our code is stricter.
Right.
So, but I would recommend the board
I understand.
schedule that for an upcoming meeting.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move those both to September for you
Yes.
guys to get some information?
Yes.
And then come September, ideally, we would be in the position to make a motion, I guess, to make a recommendation to the commission?
Correct.
No, to recommend that they forward an amendment to us.
Well, on the swales, it probably won't require amending the LDR, so you can make the recommendation. I don't know that the ordinance will necessarily come back before you, but I think the purpose of continuing this to September is to allow staff to come in, present to the board, and maybe then the board can better develop its recommendation.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else, guys, ladies?
We're good.
All right, we're adjourned, thank you.